Hello and welcome to Sixth Part. Today I'm gonna start a new series. What if Deku was born with all for one? Part 1. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and to watch more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and turn that bell notification on so you never miss an upload. Now wasting no more time, let's begin.
A man walked up to a park bench and said, "I hope I'm not late." It was late, maybe 7 p.m., and a teenager seated on the same bench said, "Not at all, I arrived just a minute ago." The park was deserted and the air was really heated. Everyone had departed 30 minutes prior. However, the teenager was unwilling to acknowledge that he had been waiting for a long time. The standard inquiry, "Well then, tell me, how was school today?" The typical response is, "I guess you won't tell me about you this time too." Why even ask? Harsh. As always. What a mystery this man was. Before taking a seat beside the youngster, he gave the most casual response he could. "Maybe one day." "That's what you always say. Our meetings have been going on for almost 5 years now." He always attempted to be humorous, and occasionally he was. Hum. And each time you managed to pull out a story. "I feel like an old man talking to his grandson in some kind of retirement home, ha ha ha." The adolescent thought this dad was a wonderful man, therefore it didn't matter if he was awkward or uncomfortable at times. "Aren't you?" he shot back with irony. True to his words, he was always wearing this enormous black mask in the shape of a skull with numerous tubes surrounding it. "I'm young in my head, but my body, despite looking young, is old. Very old, and I still have to keep this mask. It's not like I could go everywhere." The boy pondered. "I still wonder how people manage to not notice it." Izuku stared at the ground for a minute or so. Some of the idiosyncrasies were more visible than others, and eventually it was just plain nonsensical. "Of course you know how. Or you are going to find out, right? Please go ahead. I do love when you look smart in front of me." But the teen was always closer to the truth than he thought. "A quirk? It isn't passive then. But if you use it in the streets, then you can't really control its effects either, so my theory is that you can only suppress it. Like you are doing with me right now, am I right?" "Almost." The man shrugged. Izuku recognized this as a taunt and said, "Where was I wrong?" "The part of the streets. I can't stay out for a long time, you know this fact." Izuku pointed to the man's mask and said, "Ah. Remember that injury? You never revealed it to me, Sensei." The man peered above him and said, "You wouldn't like what you could see if I ever remove it." Izuku heard something in the tree but couldn't make out what he was seeing. Then he realized there were just a few birds. Izuku reminded him, "It's happening soon." "Oh, this famous school exam? UA. I'm still saying it is dangerous. Even for someone like you." This was another taunt, but this time it was intended to ensure Izuku's resolve rather than to be hostile. "I still believe that I can be a hero. I haven't changed my mind." The child was hurt by this incisive inquiry, even without a quirk. The father felt guilty and apologized for saying it in that manner. "No. I get what you were saying, but I won't use quirks that aren't mine. I will use my power only when it's necessary." Izuku displayed his gloved hands, which he really liked. However, they also served as a reminder of his capabilities. The adolescent didn't respond. Instead, he turned away. "You are handicapping yourself, that's what I always tell you, but still. I can't understand why you refuse to use it. You only did once after all. We are not so different. You also keep saying this, but we are not the same. You told me how you used it, but it doesn't mean I want to be exactly like you," Izuku said in a kind way. The man sighed. With the mask on, Izuku was unable to tell if he was being dishonest or if he had just agreed. "Well, I hope you know what you are doing. Just don't hurt yourself. You became someone really important to me." "I won't let you down, sir." The individual nodded. "Sir, he. Of course you won't, my dear Izuku. Well, here is an advice. At UA the entrance exam is literally destroying a bunch of robots in order to get points." Izuku genuinely gasped, "Our robots? But how do you even know that?" "Ha ha ha, it's not like it's a secret. You haven't been digging that much. Anyway, I just wanted to say that wreaking havoc on some poor and weak robots isn't very heroic." Izuku noticed that the man was clearly trying to tell him something. "You think it hides another part of the exam?" He said nothing more than, "Oh, I don't think," since he genuinely wanted Izuku to solve the problem on his own. "Not very heroic. So there is another exam, right?" With a quiet chuckle, the elderly man got up, stretched, and began to move away. "Who knows? You will tell me tomorrow, right?" "I won't have the results tomorrow. I was talking about how the exam went. And who are you kidding? You will get it. Good luck," he said as he departed. Indeed, Tomorrow will undoubtedly be a day to remember. However, he was unsure of the direction. The following day, Izuku was preparing to leave after finishing his breakfast. All he needed now were his gloves. However, he only found one. He called his mother, who was standing next to their apartment's entrance door with the other glove in her hand. I just wanted to say that I was proud of you. No matter what happens, you are my son and nothing will ever change that. I always tried to support you as much as I could. Maybe I was bad at my role, maybe I never knew exactly how to help you. When we found out what your quirk was I was scared. Scared that you would never be able to have a normal life, Izuku said. The phrase, "I'm so sorry," was used so long ago. This quirk was just. It wasn't bad, no quirk is good or bad, only the user is. When this incident with Katsuki happened I feared the worst. In the end no one remembers what happened. On that day I knew that you would never be able to use this quirk without being considered as a villain, a monster. And still you never gave up. Today you are giving everything you have and his mother gave him everything she had. Izuku cherished her, more than everybody else. Mom. You can stop. You didn't have to prepare all of this for me. In fact it's me that would be completely destroyed if I can't come back and get a positive result. I'm scared, but you know I have met someone just like me. We talked a lot together and today I think I'm ready. Your friend. I trust you Izuku. Please, if you make it to UA make sure to bring him here. The decision to bring this one person back to his home was obviously not a good one, but if his mother never failed him, she would be able to put up with someone like him, right? I don't think he will accept but I will definitely ask him. I should really go now. You still have 2 hours to be at UA. Before leaving his flat, he grabs his backpack and responds, you never have too much time. Not so heroic. And he still hasn't figured it out after just one night. Heroic. What's heroic? To get to UA, he had to ride the tramway. He persisted in trying to figure out the purpose of this test. People, of course. People had to demonstrate the value of their peculiarities, yet. However, it is not all that defines a hero. Simply said, it doesn't make sense. This type of test is really unfair and repulsive. What if someone doesn't have a fighting-related quirk? Izuku had arrived at his destination when the tram came to a stop. It was 3 years ago. What is this on your face? Just a scratch. I tripped when I was using my phone. Oh alright. Are you gonna tell the same lie to your mother? My poker face is that bad? Kachan he got angry again. Again. The man repeated deliberately, and what was it all about? I had the best note for our last exam and he didn't. Jealousy then. How pathetic. I still don't understand why you keep telling yourself he is your friend. Turning back, the man looked at Izuku and said, I'm not, it's just that. See? I just have to look serious and you lose all control. There is a reason to why he keeps targeting you. I don't think he remembers the incident of course. However he is abusing of your quirkless status. As everyone is. You look weak. It's like a bucket of crab. Each time one will try to climb up the others will just pull him back to the bottom. Please don't say that, Izuku said in a very low voice, not afraid to be sincere with this man. He simply feared the truth too much. One day, eventually, you will show him how weak he is compared to you. I will. But without this power, I will be away for a week. I hope you can handle yourself during this time, the man said as he got up and left. Oh, one last thing. Never be afraid of being smarter than the others as it is probably your best weapon, he said. Izuku waved the man off with a smile. The day of the entrance examination. With its enormous gates, UA was like a city unto itself. Or a sizable military installation, depending on your perspective. However, the inside was friendlier immediately after the gate, with a number of pink-leafed trees, some of which were shedding their leaves in the breeze. For a little period, he paused to take in the scenery, but he ignored the people passing by, particularly if they had intended to push him away. Out of my way. Izuku was shoved aside, nearly toppling down. After that, his ex-best friend simply continued to walk without even glancing at him. They were surrounded by other students who were either ignoring the situation or had already lost interest and were heading inside. Are you okay? That was out of the ordinary, though, because Izuku noticed a hand behind him. As Izuku rose up, he saw that the hand he had taken belonged to a female. Yes, I'm fine, it was nothing thank why, he said. An adorable girl with round cheeks, brown hair, and a stunning set of eyes. I don't even know what this kind of person is doing here, do you know him? Izuku had to get past the statement, I do. But you don't worry, it's not important. or else he would regret it. The most obvious thing he could have done was to ask a generic inquiry, such as, "Yo, you are here for the exam too, right?" Hee yes. Actually, it's great to be able to talk with someone else too. Well, to release some pressure, right? The only other Aldera student to declare his plan to take the UA entrance exam was Katsuki, who said, "You don't know anyone here either, I guess." However, less than a minute after he set foot on the school's grounds, Izuku was able to bump him. At this time, he would likely be able to accept his failure because he had already completed something even more difficult. Sadly, no hee, I'm Ochako Uraraka. Izuku Midoriya, that's my name, why yes. We still have some time before going to the conference room. So, how about we stick together? Sure. I was going to ask the same thing. Alright. Sensei was correct. It was difficult to be oneself, but it felt wonderful. And whoa, did he really talk to a girl? And did you get her name? Within a minute or less? He was so proud that he felt proud more than once in a row. Perhaps he was most likely going insane. Hello? He was unaware that Ochako Uraraka was now standing in front of him, looking rather alarmed. What oh? I spaced out, didn't I? Please don't tell me I said weird things. No, you didn't say anything. Still, we should go now, just in case we get lost. This place is gigantic. Yeah. I wonder if every door is as great as the main gate. Most likely yes. I'm so scared, I wonder what the exam is all about. Izuku said the words gently, robots. Ochako didn't fully understand Izuku's words, but after a full minute, this one word sounded incredibly significant. They continued to walk. What? You said robots? Why yeah. A good friend of mine told me what it would be. He didn't tell me everything though, that would be cheating, I guess. Are robots then? I think I can deal with this. My quirk is called zero gravity. I can suppress the impact of gravity on anything I touch. Almost anything. It has to be solid and I have a weight limit, and also, well, not a time limit, but I get sick if I do it for too long. Izuku had to hold back. There were so many possibilities with such a quirk. What if she could maintain it long enough? It was just too intriguing. Would the person or the object wind off somewhere in space? Who knows? To the moon. Is it safe for her to use on herself? And you, what's your quirk, Izuku? Mine? Well, I. Is it related to the gloves? If it's awkward, we can talk about something else, you know. I'm not forcing you. Yes, sorry, I'd rather not talk about my quirk, yes. They continued on their way to the conference room, chatting little but asking each other about their schools, exchanging phone numbers, and deciding to meet for lunch later. Particularly for Izuku, it seemed really strange. The written exams were scheduled to run 3 hours, but there was no indication that the physical exam would be any longer. In any case, they were given a seat number and a subject for the written exam as soon as they arrived in the conference room, which was actually a huge amphitheater. Given that passing the written exam was not required, Ochako appeared to be quite confident. Who knows why the UA staff would follow the schedule once more? Use this test even if the findings are irrelevant. Izuku's subjects include history, math, and a query concerning a hostage situation of some sort. Philosophy of heroism. He could deal with history and math, but damn this final part, he would just have to choose the best response because there isn't a perfect one for a question like that. It was 3 years ago. You haven't been writing anything for more than 2 minutes, are you suddenly out of ideas? I was wondering. Heroes can't be everywhere, right? Then, they can't save everyone. Of course. Just like the police, it happens. Why though? You know I like to read articles about heroes and their quirks, right? Well, I found some reports about the villain named Muscular. Trash. Teesh. Excuse me, I shouldn't have interrupted you, if I had to give you an answer. Imagine this situation. There is great war. A massive one between 2 civilizations of fighters. You are part of one of them and this one is pacifist. However, the other one simply thinks about killing everything and it is about to win. If you could end the war by destroying the entire hostile civilization along with yours, would you do it? What would happen if I do that? Simple. No more war. All the other civilizations are saved. But yours will be gone forever. In order to save billions, you killed millions without their consent. Izuku gave this question a lot of thinking. Do not bother trying to find another way. This is your lesson for today. It's about sacrifice, you have to understand that. No. Not everyone can be saved, that's a fact. But you shall never give up because of this. Sensei. You are always talking about how most heroes are bad and corrupted by the system, and yet you are helping me. Why? Because I think you can be different. The right man in the wrong place can make all the difference. Yes, I won't rephrase this one. I should go now. Mom is waiting for me. Oh yes, I'm not keeping you. Following the written test, Izuku felt that he performed admirably on the written test since he was able to locate Ochako once more in a space outside that had been set up for the pupils to eat lunch. Izuku sat next to Ochako and waved. What was your subject? She said. Economy and chemistry, and something about quirk analysis. He nearly said, killed for, when he said, oh, I would have liked this last one, but it might have sounded too strange, and he didn't want to lose Ochako's right now. Friendship? Is that even what they would call friendship? She said, quirk analysis? Why yes, I like to do that a lot. Here look. Izuku presented Ochako with his most recent notepad, which he had taken from his rucksack. He felt bad about this decision because he might come across as a stalker. After reading the 5th page, she closed it and looked at the cover, saying, wow, it's so detailed. Number 14. You made that many? She asked. Yes, I don't remember exactly when I started. Ochako pointed to the charred corner and said, something happened? An accident? After noticing that the cover was slightly burned. Not exactly. I think we are going to be separated for the practical exam. So, good luck if that's the case. And if it's not, well, we could help each other's right. But, what about the points? Don't worry about me. I won't try to steal yours. As long as you don't try to steal mine's. Seems fair then. A bell sounded. Lunch was over, and all of the examinees gathered in a different conference room, still rather large. That was strikingly identical to the one where Izuku had taken the written test. But a real conference room anyway. It was not surprising that Izuku was once again distant from Ochako, but he ended up being right close to Katsuki Bakugo. Hopefully, he wouldn't see him. He hasn't yet, at least. Present Mike explained the guidelines for the practical exam, and the meeting swiftly became a one-man show. There were only 3 different kinds of robots, and each one that was destroyed scored 1, 2, or 3 points. One more robot was also present, but it didn't provide any justification for being destroyed. Instead, Present Mike merely advised the examiners to stay away from it if it ever showed up. The examinees were taken to a training facility within the United Arab Emirates once the conference concluded. Izuku didn't see Ochako on his way. If he was correct, the hero's instructions should have placed them in the same vicinity. The facility was huge and clearly I had more fun doing everything than I did taking it seriously. Izuku wore a blue suit, and the examiners were allowed a few minutes to change. He didn't give the appropriate attire for the test much thought. Anticipated for the gloves. That was 4 years ago. Gloves? That's new, the new, touted, thing maybe? And no. In fact, I had to ask you if this kind of gloves could prevent me from using your quirk. I know why you are wearing this. I tried this method myself to see what could stop me. It doesn't work like that. Izuku clenched his jaw and started to rip the gloves off, but he was stopped by a hand. But, they can be helpful psychologically. Quirks do not only activate if you want it, your state of mind is a factor too, and if the gloves make you feel safer, then that's a solution. But you just said that it didn't stop me from using my quirk. I never said that it wasn't harder to use it. You did not listen until then, and, as a good student, you were trying to understand as fast as possible, and I admire that, but you also have to listen sometimes. Sorry, Sensei. You should try black and green. It matches very well with your hair. Now, while searching for Ochako, Izuku overheard some of the other examiners talking together, and they all sounded quite confident about the test. At the very least, we have one less rival to worry about. Look how skinny he is. Yeah, compared to us he won't last for long. Lucky us. Stupid people. They must not undervalue him. There, she was attempting to concentrate when he found her again. He chose to hold off before. An examiner wearing a dark blue suit grabbed Izuku by the shoulder and pulled him away from Ochako, saying, "Hey you. Are you trying to interfere with everyone else on this exam? What? Don't you see she is trying to focus? He either overreacted or did this on purpose. In any case, this was becoming grating." Izuku clearly needed to work on his character because his response just caused the other examiner to raise an eyebrow. Of course I'm seeing this. You never imagined that we could be friends or that I had no intention to disturb her at all. START was utterly unexpected. The training facility's enormous doors suddenly opened, and everyone just stood in front of it for 5 seconds. Izuku wanted to find Ochako first, even though he knew he should go. A voice over a loudspeaker said, "What are you waiting for? Go on, you are wasting time." Now that he had lost Ochako and was already much behind the group, he had little choice. In search of a section of the city where the robots were still in operation, Izuku chased after one of the group. It wasn't that easy, either. He possessed no quirk. Unlike most examiners, he was unable to just smash the robots, and his robot was frequently stolen by someone else. After 10 minutes, he still had nothing to say. He had to determine what the other portion of the test was, or else, it was now or never. An gigantic mechanical hand appeared on top of a building that abruptly fell next to him. It was evident that this was the renowned zero-point robot. The other examinees began to flee, and Izuku followed suit. They were all heading for the exit as though the test had already ended, but Izuku simply hid between two buildings. If only he could decipher Sensei's meaning. Someone shouted, "H help!" from the street where the zero-point robot had appeared. Ochako. Without thinking, Izuku sprinted in the direction of the voice, and his companion was trapped beneath debris, half of her body crushed. The robot was approaching. The other examiners were simply fleeing without answering her calls, and no one was around to assist her. And no. That's not fair. Izuku went running in the other direction. As the robot drew nearer, his head began to move and aim at Ochako. Izuku shouted as loudly as he could, "I need your help if you want to save me," as Ochako closed her eyes and gave up. Ochako. Her eyes were wide open as she exclaimed, "Izuku? I'm stuck." "I see that. You can't use your quirk." "And no, I'm exhausted." Izuku attempted, but he was unable to move the rubble, and she was losing consciousness, perhaps because she was scared or because her position made it difficult for her to breathe. Izuku swiftly removed both of his gloves and took Ochako's hand, saying, "I'm making a choice, Sensei. A lesson about sacrifice. Just this once." A year ago, Izuku was asked, using a quirk without taking it, genuinely intrigued by this choice. "Yes, I made some experiments about this when I used a quirk that forces another quirk to activate. It works. Not on every quirks but mostly on contact quirks. I just thought this fact could be interesting. Ha ha ha, I don't even know how many quirks you analyzed, but what's funny is that you could never analyze your own quirk." "It's not like I could. You never asked your mother? You said that her quirk wasn't so strong, and oh never mind. Telekinesis, right? Or the equivalent. Bad idea. It could either hurt me or my mother more than any other quirk I could take. That would be the case for any quirk which requires a sensible muscle like the brain, the heart or the lungs for example. It might also explains why our quirk doesn't work on mutations." "Did you write this?" Izuku said. "I made some theories." "Oh, may I have a look one day? I thought you couldn't read." "I can't, but I can ask someone to do so, and I could also correct some informations if you want." "That would be great. Now." The largest piece of debris above her began to float when Izuku squeezed Ochako's other hand against it as well. This was just enough to allow him to free Ochako. Izuku was already feeling ill, therefore she was correct about the time restriction. At the last second, he was able to save her, and the robot's fist terminated exactly where Ochako had been. Through the speakers, the presenter said, "Stu PPPPP, and that will be all, thank you. See you in 2 weeks, maybe." Izuku cautiously deposited Ochako in a secure location, and he fell to the ground as the enormous robot appeared to shut off. There he is. Despite failing the exam totally, he was able to save someone and make a friend. Places everyone, and again they thought it was funny to just make it pop in the middle of nowhere, and hey, it's not the time to sleep. Izuku was startled when a cane struck his head. It was an elderly woman known as the R recovery girl. She pointed with her cane at Ochako's body and remarked, "Aw, at least you know my name. What happened to your friend?" "Shush, she got stuck under some rubbles and I think she lost consciousness because her body was being compressed." "Good observation. Here, you are going to help me, would you? Carry her. It's not like I'm going to do everything myself, right?" "Why yes." After 30 minutes. Ochako's eyes opened. She was resting on a soft surface. A bed? Additionally, the space she was in was all white. An elderly woman's visage emerged over Ochako, saying, "Ah, see, I told you she was all right." She asked, obviously perplexed by the abrupt change in surroundings, "Where am I?" Izuku was seated on a chair and waving clumsily when she pointed her thumb behind her and said, "Your friend over here carried you to the infirmary because you lost consciousness during the exam." Izuku. "Thank you. Without him, Nezu's toy would have crushed you. The rubbles were already barely letting you breath and your ankle was getting twisted. Don't worry though, right now you are in the exact same state as you were this morning." "Thank you miss." Ochako was nearly crying and felt extremely worn out, but if she could move, She would give a hug to the closest person next to her. Recovery girl. I guess we will be seeing each other a lot if you manage to make a good score. I was watching but not judging, so it's not up to me. But I can tell that you made a great performance. The words, "are really, thank you so much," will make her parents very delighted. Stay here for 5 minutes please. I just have a few things to see before you leave. No problem. And you Izuku? How was the exam? Me? I think I did as great as you. There was something strange about his smile, even though it was sincere. Well oh no, I'm late. Sorry I have to leave, my mom is waiting for him, but I really wanted to stay until you wake up. Let's text each other slatter goodbye. All Ochako knew was that his mother was waiting. However, the fact that he was able to put so much in 10 seconds still impressed her. The old grandmother had stopped smiling when the recovery girl returned with a pile of papers and a cup of water. Something is wrong? Ochako inquired. Oh, nothing really, he is right. He really did a great job. There is in fact two kind of point system. Villain and hero points if you prefer. He got 0 villain points, but by saving you when everyone else was running away, he probably got the maximum amount of hero points. So, why do you look so sad? The recovery girl gave Ochako a cup of water and a medication, saying, even with a Heitsoker like this he won't get in. Why? He is quirkless, was her response after giving the question some thought. You are staring. The letter is supposed to arrive tonight. How could I not be staring at the ground? Did this girl talk with you? She did. Thank you again. Oohee. Looks like my teaching ended up giving you a girlfriend. This feels really awkward. And not yet. Oh, trust me, with this kind of charisma you can get her without even trying. Charisma? Yes. I never tried myself, but I guess you could give me some reports. Absolutely not. I won't be part of this kind of experiment. Never said you had to. Tell me, what's written on your file considering your quirk? Quirkless. Hum. And you did hit your little use of the all for one during the exam, right? I pressed her hand on the tube at the same time as I did. This way it looks like I'm pushing the rubbles away. Good. Because if they find out you have a quirk, then this could be a real problem, and not only for you. Care to explain? Oh. Very simple, falsifying official documents, as well as using them in order to infiltrate a national establishments? Don't you think it's already going too far? I'm just getting started, haha. Well, sorry, but my mom is waiting. I shouldn't have phrased it like that. See? This kind of charisma. Now go, I have places to be too. Izuku didn't say anything, though, and up until tonight, he and Ochako had been texting back and forth, with one of the main topics being how he had really assisted her in getting out from beneath the debris. He could only explain that he employed her quirk by placing her hand into the debris, but Ochako insisted that her quirk didn't actually function that way. Izuku's only response was that he didn't know how he activated it at the time. Even while his mother asked him a lot about how the exam went, he also avoided talking about Ochako with her. His favorite plate, katsudon, was present tonight. He was now gazing at a fish's head, or more accurately, at its eyes. Izuku, are you okay? He didn't know how much time he had been staring at the fish head, but his mother's expression made it clear that it was much longer than any rational person would have thought it should be. Why yes, sorry. I'm just, the letter, still nothing? Someone knocked on the door and said, well. We can always hope, it isn't 9 p.m. yet, Izuku dropped his fish head, and his mother nearly lost her footing, causing the entire family to freeze for a moment. The letter. Izuku was ready to rush to the door when his mother left the table and went to welcome someone at the door in a fit of rage. And it was mentioned that someone sounded really alarmed by his mother's unexpected outburst of hostility. Her face was blank when she returned, and in her hands a half-crushed letter. It's here. She fell to her knees, losing control of her body as well as her words. Izuku took the letter and looked it over for a while. It had the seal of the United Arab Emirates. After his mother nodded, he was locked in his bedroom the following minute. The pivotal moment. A letter in front of him that showed his dream's open door, or he was unable to consider the failure. He grabbed the seal. He tugged as hard as he could until the envelope was torn apart, and it was bonded to the letter quite nicely. There was something inside. A little disc made of metal, using a large button. When he pressed it, a hologram materialized. Izuku initially thought it was a really poor prank, but as he watched all of this babble, he began to identify the guy in the hologram. Is it recording? I should try again. Bip hello? Maybe the volume is a bit bip test? Bip? Nezu, the director of UA, had already seen him, himself. There, sorry, I'm not used to record anything as my dear colleagues are the only ones to do it. And they have a full set too. Anyway, this is indeed a hologram for your exam results, not a joke or an error, so. Izuku Midoriya, I have take a personal interest in you. Your quirkless status is part of your situation. Already, this recording sounded a little tense. You see, each year after the exam we carefully watch records of the examines, and we attribute points according to their performance. You scored 0 against the robots. I suppose you have already guessed that. It's not a problem. I'm not saying you had absolutely no chance, but you definitely had a disadvantage. I should have stipulated that weapons were allowed. As long as they are not lethal, of course. It makes sense. Nezu was thus far as the majority of the articles he read seemed to characterize him, serious and effective. Now considering the other system of point. The hero points. Well, me and my colleagues did not have the same point of view. Most of them tried to give an unfair amount of point, and by unfair I mean almost negative. But they forgot that I get the finale answer in you. Izuku Midoriya. With a total of 80 points you were ranking first for the entrance exam. First. Izuku's mind was on the verge of blowing apart 5 seconds ago. I suppose that now you are ready to listen again. Nezu casually recorded for 10 seconds. I really would like to talk with you, so I personally invite you for a meeting one day before the official start of the school year. There must be an official pass in the envelope, and there is also my phone number. If you have any problem, contact me. Izuku had already scrawled the phone number in at least 3 different locations throughout his room and put it in his phone before Nezu was finished. His mother was still pacing the hallway when he opened his bedroom door again, utterly oblivious to his absence. I'm done? Izuku. So? Well, it's, unclear. I'm kinda first of the exam, but I still have to meet with the director himself, and please lap me so I know it is not a dream. Izuku stopped mumbling. When and where is this meeting taking place? UA. The day before the start of the year. A phone call between Ochako and Izuku. The director himself? I heard that he was a mouse or something. LM. Nezu is actually a hybrid between a dog and a mouse and a bear, creating a D's? I made that up. GS. Don't worry, I always assumed he was just a huge mouse. Or you mean Disney? Or is he a mutant Ewok from the movie Star Wars Christmas? Skeptical smiley face. A mix to be exact. It's because I was first for the exam, ha. No hard feelings? No, not at all. I'm really happy. In fact, did you know I was 4th? Fourth? That's amazing. Then both of us will get into the hero course for sure. For a brief moment, Izuku got no response. Ochako? Did I lose the signal? I am here, sorry. Just had something burning. I really hope it will work out for you. Did he confirm anything? Well. No, he didn't. In fact, just said that he was really interested in my performance, yes, and he wanted to meet me in person. Still, that's one day before we start. I guess it tells a lot already. How many points? 80. And you? 28 villain points and 45 rescue points. Wow, that's a lot. I guess you really get a height score with this second system, and 28. You destroyed so much robots. Your quirk is awesome. I wonder how you got your rescue points. Me too. Maybe it's because you rescued me. Who knows how they even give the points? That's a good question. Well, I should leave you now. My mom is probably making circles in front of my bedroom and we still haven't finished to eat. Why is my life so hard? He. You are free. I have to go eat too. Good night. Izuku hung up and at last took a breath. Good night. To have his brother practically barge into his room and disturb him once more. You have a girlfriend? Please don't leave me alone. I'm not ready to see you go. I'm not so old yet. His mother snapped at him before he could respond, then gave him a tight hug as a sign of her affection. I almost said, strangulate to death, but I didn't. Days later, the main gate of UA. After exploring the gate for roughly 5 minutes without discovering anything, Izuku said, great. It's closed. Maybe there is an intercom or something. A standard mailbox was present, but that was all. The last thing he did was call Nezu. He waited for a response at last. Hello. Nezu is here. Who is calling? Mr. Nezu. I'm Izuku Midoriya. You asked to meet me and... The gate opened before he could say anything more, and a tiny figure appeared behind it. Sorry, I forgot it was supposed to be closed. The staff is enjoying their last day off. Anyway, come. We have so much to discuss. And even more paperwork behind. Paperwork? Yes, about your inscription, assurances and all the boring stuff, as if you were being hired for a pizzeria night guard shift. Nezu pivoted and made his way inside UA. Izuku was trotting behind him to stay with him. I'm not exactly sure why I am here. What are going to talk about exactly? Oh yes. I couldn't tell you everything since I had a limit with the hologram projector. What you have to know is that right now you are not officially a student at UA. But you said, I said I had the last word, but I couldn't simply tell to all the teacher that their decision didn't matter. And in that case it was simply unfair. They, almost, all agreed to not let you in because you were quirkless and they assumed you wouldn't be able to keep up with the program. I completely disagree with this, so right now I'm doing everything to let you in. Thank you, sir, it really means a lot to me. However, I fear that they won't stop here. Even if I let you in, the teachers aren't going to treat you as a simple student. It's fine. I'm used to this kind of things. They arrived at Nezu's office, which was quite basic, just a large desk, 2 shelves, and a few chairs. But it had a great view of the entire school, or a large portion of it. Please take a seat. Nezu moved behind his desk and sat directly on the desk in front of Izuku, putting them on equal footing. Now before we start, I want you to do one thing, Nezu said. Nezu pulled out several sheets of paper from a drawer. Yes, you see your written exam results were simply perfect. I want you to do it again, here on front of me. I'm not suggesting that you cheated or anything, it's just a small test that I made myself, Nezu said, dropping the sheets in front of Izuku and pulling out a pen for him. Izuku looked into the matter. It was much more difficult and twice as long as the test he had previously passed. However, something from Quirk analysis came quite near this time. How much time do I have? Izuku nodded in response and began to explore the topic. Nezu exited his office when he noticed that Izuku was focused. As much as you need. Meanwhile, I will prepare the papers for your inscription. Oh, and if you need anything, simply call me. He actually told a fib. Everything was prepared. He was merely interested in Izuku's appearance and character. An elderly woman he encountered said, "Poor boy. You really like to go all out, right? Plus ultra, right? I didn't make something impossible, don't worry. Just almost clearly impossible." Humph, close enough. You are really going to let him in? You disagree with my decision? I never thought you would. I'm deceived. I don't care if he is quirkless or not, I'm just worried about what the others will do to him. You know how cruel the humankind is. That's exactly why I'm giving him a chance, because he could become as cruel as them, and if young Midoriya happened to be pushed too far, then I fear the worst. He has the talents, the capacities to become a great hero. He just lacks the ways and the help to do so. Fine, but I won't treat him differently either. Then that's settled. Do you want to watch him with me? Nezu raised both of his arms in a humorous manner, and Recovery Girl just moaned and walked away. No, I'm not a psychopath and I have an appointment, enjoy the show alone. Nezu installed cameras all over the place, and now the walls had eyes as well. He could watch Izuku work from a security room, and after a half hour, he resumed his writing without pausing. Izuku's perseverance impressed Nezu, and he hoped that his outcomes would further impress him. However, one particular detail seemed strange. Nezu was baffled by Izuku's decision to wear gloves while his labor. Perhaps he neglected to remove them? After 3 hours, Izuku finally put down his pen and read the entire thing again. He then pulled out his phone and dialed Nezu. Sir, I finished the subject. When he returned a minute later, he saw Izuku surveying the office. Great, I'll be back in a few minutes, he said. He took Izuku's subject and placed it back in a drawer, saying, I will look at it later, thank you. Now, regarding your class, you will join Class 1A, you deserve it after all. Oh, and it wasn't supposed to be revealed before the start of the year, but All Might himself will be teaching at UA. 3, 2, 1. All Might. Yes, he will be teaching for the next generation of heroes, and you will be part of it. It's an honor, ha ha ha, I'm glad that an individual like you is going to be part of our school. Wait. Oh right, yes. So as I was saying, my colleagues have no idea that you will be a student, and some, especially Aisawa, are gonna try to expel you. Expel? Isn't that a bit overdramatic? The person I'm talking about already expelled the whole class 1 their first day. Just make sure to not annoy him. Izuku pulled a notepad out of his backpack and said, Wait, do you mind if I take some notes? Absolutely not. So next we have. Never mind, I think Mike won't bother you that much if you have good grades and if you eventually listen to his show on the radio. Seems easy to do. And then we have, later on in the day. Sensei was having a look at Izuku's notes about UA's instructors and what he should not do once he was at UA. You spent almost half of your day taking notes about your teachers just to not get expelled. What a great shot of UA. It's not that bad. Nezu is really friendly and he said he will support me. You won't always be able to rely on him. One day you will have to show everyone what you can do. You will have to show them that you are not a weak quirkless. There is one last thing I have to tell you. Well have. It's not important since you will know tomorrow probably, but All Might will be teaching at UA. Sensei gripped his pants tighter and gazed toward the horizon as there was an awkward quiet. Oh, really? I know you do not like him, at all so. Sorry, I should have kept this for me, wrong topic. Maybe one day I will tell you why I hate him, anyway. I really hope you will survive your first day. That's the baptism of fire, right? Indeed, that's the right expression. Do not misunderstand what I'm about to say, but you will have to realize, very soon, that UA is much more close from a military school than you think. If you say so, I have to go now, see you later. Izuku reclaimed his notepad and left his sensei alone, saying, ha 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 yes yes. Whispering to the wind, Sensei said, please, stay safe. No, you won't be. Izuku hardly had time to call Ochako since he had to double-check everything for tomorrow after eating, and it was nearly 9 p.m. when he returned home. And it was already 11 o'clock when he finished, and his mother had been asleep for at least an hour. Why'd I always have to run somewhere? And just as he was ready to pass asleep in bed, still dressed, he was struck by another detail. He didn't have a costume ready, and Nezu didn't give him anything. If he can work something out tomorrow, he'll just drop something off at his office. He did notice that the students wore some sort of blue and white suit to the UA festival every year. Perhaps he will get one like this. Something grabbed him from behind and began to pull him as he was ready to undress. Everything was black at first, and he was immobile, but suddenly he struck something. The ground, perhaps? It was cold and stone, and although everything around him was dark, there were a few light sources, several screens, one lamp, and sparkles of red. He was getting very, very near to it. That voice. Sorry, but it was necessary. Sensei. But where are we? Did you bring me here? Answers. Yes, that's me. You are in my, well, call it a lair, and I brought you here because I don't think you will be able to survive your first day. Izuku got to his feet to survey the area, aware that Sensei had a troubled past, although he was unaware that he was a resident. Did you really have to this in the middle of the night? From what I see, you weren't sleeping yet and you were well awake. I was about to do so. I just spent the 3 last hours making sure that I was ready. Good, because now I will spend the next 2 hours making sure you are physically ready. Sensei, I can't. Why? Because you do not trust me. No, you do. Because it's too late. From what I learned, heroes never knows when things are going to happen and they do not decide whether or not they do work. And finally, how are you going to defeat a bunch of talented kids with their quirks when you won't even use yours? Izuku was rendered mute after Sensei challenged him to the limit, and he was aware that he would not give up until he was correct. Ultimately, Sensei wasn't just use reasoning to prevail in this dispute. This time, he was correct, and Izuku currently lacked any means of defense. Yes. You are right again. What should I do then? Simple, I'm going to help you. For the next 2 hours I will give you some basics and some movements from my own set. Are really? Your own? I may have to tell you again that I lived for over 2 centuries. I know exactly how to fight, even when I can't use any quirks. See this as a passing of the torch. You really know how to make things great, most of the time. Now dodge. Inko had never been so glad and thrilled that her son would at last rise to hero status, even if it meant going the extra mile and enduring numerous challenges. He truly wanted this first day to be ideal, so she made sure to get him up early enough for him to at least recuperate a little from this long night. Inko was still preparing breakfast when she said, "Sorry Mom, I couldn't find my gloves." When she noticed that her son had a crimson stain on his cheek, she asked, "What happened?" and nearly dropped the plate on the floor to check on Izuku. "Don't worry, you still have an hour to get ready," she said, taking a plate and turning around to offer it to this boy. Nothing, don't worry, I fell from my bed because I thought I was late, ha ha ha. It was a lie, of course it was. But how did he receive this mark if he didn't return with it yesterday? She was able to pretend that she believed him because it wasn't really that serious. Oh, I'm relieved then. Now finish your breakfast and go. You don't want to be late on your first day, and make sure to say hi to your girlfriend. She isn't my girlfriend. Later, at UA's Sensei gave it her best for him. Izuku didn't actually learn fight moves. Instead, he would characterize them as evading, but it was worth the expense. He also lacked a superb physique. His mother didn't seem to appreciate that at all, so he will have to avoid getting harmed the next time. On his first day, he wasn't even certain it would be helpful. What might occur? He resided closer to UA than Ochako did. He wasn't sure if she was in the same class as him, therefore she would most likely arrive at school later. Izuku halted in front of a door that was 15 feet high and had the words 1A written on it. 1A, 1A, 1. Izuku. A voice called from behind. Ah, Ochako, I think I found my class. Ochako looked at the wall and tried to visualize the size of the room, asking, do you think it's bigger on the inside? You mean ours then? That's great. Who knows? We should get in before our teacher arrives, unless he is already in. It's only 7:53. I guess we have some time ahead of us. Hey, what's that on your face? The red mark? I hit my desk this morning, thought I was late. You hit your desk? It must be really sharp then. Yes, a really sharp one. Oh, also, I talked with the director about our homeroom teacher. Just avoid talking about fun and routine. What did you two talk about? Ochako said suspiciously. Too much. Won't tell you more though. Should we get in now? I mean, we won't become heroes if we just stare at the door. Alright, you first then. Why me? Izuku opened the door and looked inside the classroom, unsure if it was humor or logic. You were the one to suggest, and beside you are taller than me, so if it's a weird trap then you may act as a human shield. It was incredibly commonplace, with pupils discussing their peculiarities and the test with one another, and in particular, two pupils yelling at one another. Izuku turned around and left the classroom, nearly shoving Ochako as he went, saying, oh crap. Hey, what's wrong? Second row, last seat. I guess you recognize him. Oh. They kept him in then? That's weird. Are you scared of him? Ochako asked, opening the door a little to get a better look. I'm not. But if he realizes I'm here I will definitely have an angry explosive guy on my back in the next second. Why would he do that? You know him right, what's wrong with him? This is Katsuki Bakugo, Quirk Explosion, has been praised for his quirk all his life and is basically a heartless cocky bastard who thinks everyone is inferior to him. That's clever, but you are still gonna have to get inside. How much time do I have? 7:56, Komon, now get inside. Izuku opened the door again with a stern expression on his face, but with half the class now staring at him, perhaps it was worth too much enthusiasm. Sorry, the wind I guess. I recognize you from the entrance exam, please allow me to apologize, said a tall student as he approached Izuku and bowed. Don't really, it's nothing, I am Izuku Midoriya, the one who scored first at the entrance exam. Congratulations, I am Tenya Iida. With a gesture to Tenya, Ochako appeared by Izuku and said, I don't know if you remember me but I helped you with a robot. Iida shook Ochako's hand and said, oh yes. You are the girl with the gravity quirk. Thank you. I guess that thanks to you we both earned hero points. It was nothing really, I am Ochako Urara. Ochako turned to see who had yelled, if you are here to socialize then get out, but she couldn't find anything. She said, down here. She noticed a yellow sleeping bag on the ground and said, better, now all of you have 5 seconds to be on your seats and silent. The class carried with the sleeping bag's directive, but Izuku ran across Katsuki as he was making his way to his location. He would have shouted something if he could have, but they had to be seated at the moment, so he just shoved Izuku. We will have to work on this. Anyway, the sleeping bag opened to reveal a man dressed entirely in black, save for a scarf. He appeared extremely exhausted, likely still recovering from a drug overdose. I am Shota Aizawa, your homeroom teacher. Now get a suit and meet me outside, we are going to start with a quirk assessment test or whatever you call it. If Izuku hadn't warned her about their homeroom teacher, Ochako would have objected, but no one did. After exchanging glances, the others picked a suit from each of the 2 boxes on the left side of the classroom. As Ochako picked up a suit, she asked, off to a great start, right? It could be. Never mind, I was going to say it is going to get worse, replied Izuku. Ochako tried to talk as quietly as she could since she didn't want to become Aizawa's victim again. Do you know who he is, Izuku? I mean our teacher, as a pro hero. In addition, she was the first of the year as well as the day. Nezu didn't tell me, but this scarf, I could swear I saw it somewhere, and when it comes to his quirk it's definitely linked to his eyes. I'm not sure the director would let someone as tired as him teach if there wasn't a good excuse. Signs of exhaustion, black clothes, he works during the night. An underground pro? Oh. Why yes, of course. It's Eraserhead. Izuku smiled. Ochako couldn't even imagine Aizawa wearing a real Eraser costume, So she asked, "Eraser what?" "Eraser head. With his quirk he can suppress someone else's quirk just by looking at them." Wow, I had never heard of a quirk that could block another quirk. It must be rare. That's why he is so tired. And that might also explain why he is so, I wouldn't say angry, in a bad mood? Grumpy? Maybe he is bored. Ochako slowed down so that she and Izuku would be a little behind the entire class as they were going outdoors, saying, "That explains why he doesn't want to see us, socializing, makes noises." But as they continued to converse, Izuku was unaware. "Why did you lie?" "Lie? What are you talking about?" "You can stop pretending. Recovery girl told me while I was at the infirmary, you were quirkless, Izuku. How are you going to pass Aizawa's test?" She told you. You have to understand, I am sorry, I feared that you would treat me differently if you knew I had no power. I guess it doesn't matter, maybe everyone does this test at the beginning of the year, so the teachers can keep track on our progress. She exclaimed at Izuku, "I would never do that," before realizing that she had truly frightened him. I shouldn't have yelled like th. Tenya was quite fast to look into things that didn't appear normal or proper. "Is everything okay?" I heard someone scream. I apologized to Tenya, but I overreacted when Izuku asked if I could send people to space with my quirk. Ochako grinned sheepishly. He turned around and ran back with the class, saying, "Oh, right. You two shouldn't slow down, we might be late." Honestly, I'm glad someone doesn't look down on me for once. Thank you, Ochako. That was 4 years ago. They forgot you. I'm sorry, but I don't see how this is even possible. During our sport class, the teacher asked me to stand somewhere. We were playing dodgeball, and that's all. Excuse me, but your story doesn't make sense. There is simply no context. Now tell me, why did your teacher ask you to stand away? He said that I wasn't resistant enough for this exercise. Resistant? Did he thought that your head would get detached from your body if you happened to get hit by a ball? No. He had created groups before the exercise, according to physical capacities. Mine didn't play, that's all. And you don't happen to know who was in your group, right? Sensei sighed and rubbed his neck when Izuku shook his head. One day you will have to accept that they aren't fair with you. I know they aren't. What else can I do? Once I become a hero, they will see that they were wrong. And you think they are just going to let that happen? Tell me, do you think black and white people became equal just like that? Do you think people with mutants' quirk are treated equally today? Equality is a lie. The funny and cute little things you were being taught, when you were like 4 years old, those little lessons about life. Well, see? That's garbage. If you want to be treated equally, you have to be better than them, stronger, smarter, colder. I should become worse than them. Ha ha ha. At least I'm sure you will never become a bad hero. Como now, next time I hope you will tell me how your game of dodgeball went. Katsuki Bakugo. Yes. In junior height, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters. Then try doing it with your quirk. Aizawa tossed Katsuki a ball before beginning to examine a test-related gadget. With the ball in his grasp, Katsuki executed a spectacular arm spin and die. The ball sped off like a missile, leaving a path of flames behind it. Ochako's expression merely conveyed that she was expecting something less savage when she looked at an Izuku. Die, she murmured. With a half-broken smile, he replied, "Don't try to know if he was serious or not. Poor ball though. This is the most sensible method to build a hero's foundation." Aizawa turned to face the class and exhibited the gadget he was carrying, which indicated 705.2 meters. The entire class began discussing how wonderful it was, and the word, fun, was then uttered. Fun? You think this is fun? All right. Whoever ends in last place at the end of all the 8 tests will be judged to have no potential and will be punished with expulsion. Expulsion. Izuku was already in the woods, so he couldn't, or rather, didn't want to, think that Aizawa did that intentionally just because he was present. He sincerely hoped that his teacher had lied solely to get the best performance possible on the test. Even yet, Nezu claimed to have expelled an entire class in a single year, and that he was quite entitled to do so. Something grabbed Izuku's hand. It was Ochako. In order to prevent an incident, I hope he still has his gloves on. For the next 3 years UA will do all it can to give you one hardship after another. Go beyond plus ultra. Demonstration is over. Now we will start with 50-meter dash. Aizawa had concluded his argument with a few students who didn't appreciate his approach. 50-meter dash. Izuku didn't have much time to examine every student in his class, but he was aware that there were 2 runways and that some of them lacked any peculiarities that would have allowed them to run more quickly. His motivational idea may actually be accurate. Setting up 2 runways will allow the students to monitor the individual in the other runway. Ultimately, Aizawa didn't sound or appear to be a horrible person, and he was well versed in this area. This examination. To what degree was he permitted to go in order to avoid being in last place? Still, there was a suspicious element about it. Naturally, everyone would leverage their peculiarities to achieve remarkable outcomes. He had to run the 50-meter dash with Katsuki. This was not what he had anticipated. He didn't know exactly what Aizawa permitted, and there was no way to take advantage of the small camera at the end of the runway, which was there to show each student's time. They both walked to the start line. The noises of Katsuki's blasts interrupted Aizawa's sentence, "On your mark. Set. G," and knocked Izuku aside, sending him at least 3 meters from the runway. He intentionally did it. This bastard did it on purpose. Izuku took over 12 seconds to complete the dash. While Aizawa remained silent, he noticed that Ochako was going to step in, but Izuku just told her to stop. Izuku was unable to hear the other pupils' whispers, but he was able to infer what they were saying. Ultimately, it provided an answer to his query. Aizawa wouldn't say anything, so he could do anything. "Are you okay?" Izuku approached Ochako and muttered, "I am the one getting expelled, right? That's what everyone said. I have seen worse." "Yes. Please tell me you have an idea to get out of this mess," Ochako said, glancing over her shoulder for a moment. "I'm going to exploit Aizawa's rules. Only the last one get expelled, right?" After 2 hours, Izuku completed each activity last. It was just plain gloomy. He left the class in the gym and said, "Okay, I'll give you a minute to catch your breath. I need some eyes to drop." And Aizawa did something truly intriguing as he was leaving. He let his iPad fall upon a bench. What if Ochako snatched his hand and said, "Izuku, what are you doing? I have no other choice, if I can change my results." Then he will notice, and you will get expelled. The last exercise is the ball throw. I was last on all the others, it's not like I can just be first now. Sorry, but I have to do this. Ochako released Izuku's hand. "Just, please consider what I said, maybe he is lying. Here. The ball throw, yes, I'll use my quirk on the ball, and I see what you were trying to plan, Ochako. It would work, yes, that's genius, but Aizawa would never allow that, and I really want to do this on my own. Even if it means that I get expelled. Please don't go." Ochako groaned before returning to the class to continue talking. Nobody was observing. However, Ochako was correct. Aizawa could charge Izuku if he altered his own results. And he was unable to alter someone else's outcome to avoid finishing last. But then he had a thought. It was 2 years ago. "Okay. I think I found my question. Good. Then I'm not completely useless to you. Go on. What would be the very last solution during a crisis? Any, do you know what is nuclear deterrence?" "You mean with the weapons?" "Absolutely. Today there isn't much use for this kind of weapon. Now they're Quirk much more dangerous than this kind of toy." "Well, the lesson for today is about deterrence. No one would be stupid enough to use its final weapon if the other can use it too. Tell me, what would be the result?" "Chaos. No winner, everyone would be at the same level." "Exactly. Deterrence, forcing your opponents to give up the fight before it even starts." Izuku went to a locker room after taking the medication without anyone noticing. After just 1 minute, he returned and dropped the tablet precisely where he had picked it up, and once more, nobody noticed him. Together with the others, Ochako was sipping a bottle of water. The ambiance was comparatively calm, and it's clear that every other pupil felt secure. Shortly after, she realized something had changed when she saw Izuku coming over with a contented grin. So, now the odds are balanced. In order to speak with Izuku without being overheard, Ochako stepped away from the gathering. "What did you change?" she said. "Everything," he said, his smile remaining intact. Everything? By everything you mean?" "I changed everyone's score and put it to infinite. I didn't know it was even possible. Oh, I also erased all the previous records." He took up his tablet from the bench and scowled as Aizawa returned, rubbing his eyes simultaneously. This explosive statement caused a lot of muttering, but it didn't continue long since he murmured, "Very funny," loud enough for the entire class to hear. "All right. So, there was a problem with your results. So I will only count the last test. You have 2 minutes to be outside." So this is what you meant by balancing the odds. You put everyone on the same level so Aizawa would be forced to only count the last test. I hoped you would. So far it looks like he is. At the same time, somewhere, you summoned me, Sensei? Sensei motioned Kurogiri to take a few steps forward, saying, "Oh. Yes, come closer please. I don't want to yell across the whole room." "Do you need anything again?" "No. Not this time, I have special orders. Tamura is already planning?" "As you suggested he is. Good. You're to keep this for yourself and never tell Tamura, understood?" "Yes, Sensei. There is student at UA. Izuku Midoriya, if you ever encounter him, he is to be left unharmed." Kurogiri squirmed for a moment. He would never inquire as to Sensei's motivation. However, this was undoubtedly unique. So, Kurogiri was just too interested, even though it was perilous. "Excuse me, Sensei. I lost focus for a moment. Yes. Izuku Midoriya is to be left unharmed." But may I ask if he is part of the plan?" "Not exactly, but I can tell you he is indeed part of a plan. Now go back to Tamura. And remember, this information is to be kept secret, even if I disappear." "Yes, Sensei." Kurogiri twisted his expression. "I wonder how Izuku is doing right now." He must admit that it was sort of entertaining to see everyone wait for nearly 5 minutes before the Aizawa's tablet chose to quit monitoring the ball. Izuku was supposed to be the last one to throw, so at least he had all of his chances now. Ochako really scored infinite with her quirk. Katsuki improved by roughly 50 meters from the previous time. It was nonetheless outstanding even though those without a decent quirk for this exercise hurled the ball at about 50 meters. Calling Aizawa, "Midoriya. Your turn." Izuku took the 50-meter ball after walking into the white circle. Yes, if he put his all into it, he could accomplish that. He inhaled deeply and threw the ball as hard as he could. 68.4 meters, good, we are done here. Oh, and by the way, I was lying about the expulsion stuff. Everyone exclaimed, "What?" With the exception of the female who could make tools and Izuku, a lad who possessed a quirk related to fire and ice. "That seemed obvious, it was only an excuse so we wouldn't take this test as a simple game," she said. At Aizawa, Yeli's Katsuki exclaimed, What the FCK? Why aren't you expelling Deku? Calm down, would you? And who is? This quirkless trash was last on every test and now you are just— Katsuki was unable to yell any longer despite being fully restrained. "Do that again and you will be the one to get expelled. I'm about to release you and if I hear any little kind of annoying nonsense coming from your mouth I'll send you straight to hell. Understood?" Aizawa let go of Katsuki after he remained motionless for a minute and just moaned. Izuku was ready to follow when Aizawa grabbed him by the shoulder and said, "Expect you, we have to talk. Go back to the class, I'll be here in a minute." "Why yes sir. I never thought you would mess that much with the results, in fact I'm impressed you did so quickly." Izuku was acting. Lauded. Nobody ever did. For once, though, Sensei would be treated like any other, th. The statement, "But you completely ruined this test," dashed Izuku's plans. What but you didn't notice, everyone knew that you would be in last position until your little trick with the results, and you know what they did before that? They felt safe. So they weren't at their maximum, so I'm going to be clear. If you happen to become a handicap for this class I'm expelling you immediately. Yes. Good, now stop wasting my time and go back to the class. Was he wasting his time? Developing a disability? Aizawa was as despised by Izuku as Katsuki was? After returning to the classroom, he was given several looks and overheard rumors of the test, which included, "Is he really quirkless? Damn, that's so strange. Isn't he the one who scored first during the exam? How did he do that? He must have cheated." The most aggravating thing was that they were entirely mistaken. He wasn't unusual at all. In fact, he was capable of being far more eccentric than any of them. No, he didn't cheat. He was just better than them. He sat at the desk next to Ochako and continued to smile as like nothing was wrong. To date, there was no indication that the desks belonged to any specific student. He murmured to her, "Well, it seems like it's not that different." "I'm so sorry." "Oh, don't be. What did Aizawa tell you?" "Idea rather not mention this conversation, excuse me. I guess the worst part of the day is behind us now." When the day is over, Izuku was able to find out who some of his classmates were, even though he didn't try to contact them and they largely ignored him. He explained that he needed some alone time when Ochako asked if he wanted to go for a stroll with her. He couldn't recall the last time he had been so furious. When did he last feel so lost? However, he recalled that upon meeting Sensei. Sensei's aura was so powerful that it was impossible to keep any hope or courage alive around him. His presence was so overwhelming. Despite the fact that this man was a monster, they just happened to cross paths. Sensei was there to reassure Izuku after he got lost. Even if he was innocent, the only person who could assist him was a killer. He grew enamored with this man and aspired to be as strong and intelligent as him. Even shared his fear. No villain would ever dare challenge him since he was such a fearsome figure. All might had been gone from his thoughts for a while, and every day he looked forward to seeing him again and discussing everything. He was always honest, even if the truth was awful or just not a good one. So far, his mother and were the only two people he could trust, as well as Ochako. In fact, she was aware of his quirklessness. However, she was different. She didn't criticize him, and the fact that he had saved her once was sufficient evidence of his heroism. At last, he arrived at the park. Empty as usual, which is understandable. There was a lot of rubbish and junk here. Sensei was already here, waiting on a bench. Normally, Izuku would wait, but today they traded places. Sensei said, "Ah, finally there. You look exhausted." "I am. And hey, I survived. Congratulations. Now tell me about this first day." Izuku continued by outlining all that transpired this morning. Since the afternoon was primarily about the normal classes, it wasn't very significant. "And that's it. Now I'm here chatting with you." Sensei sighed and eased his body on the seat, saying, "I hope I'm not the one in this hell. Do you imagine having to do all that work in my current condition? It could have been a better day. I need you to train me." "What?" I need to get stronger. What you taught me last night. It won't be enough. Please, I need to get stronger." Izuku clenched his teeth. It wasn't dishonesty but fear. You do know it isn't that simple if you don't use all for one. Fear of failing. But Izuku turned to face Sensei right away and said, "If you truly want to train them, we will do it exactly like yesterday. Every night until you are strong enough, even though I didn't tell you all the secrets of this quirk." Thank you. Do not. It won't be a fun thing. When I said training I was serious. In fact I implied way more than that. You did work a bit to get in shape, but as you are right now it is simply not enough. And you lack of determination. Determination? If one day you had to kill to save people, would you do it? Don't even try to tell me a hero doesn't kill. I'm serious. One day this situation might happen and you will have to be strong-willed enough to take someone else's life. Am I clear? But how do you want me to train in order to kill? Simple. You will do it on me. What? You could stab me 1,000 times, I will still be standing up. To be honest, I think it will take a small nuclear bomb to knock me out. That's insane. That would mean that you have a terrible quantity of shock and radiation absorption quirk along with regeneration, of course. In the end, they're all the same. Don't you think this is a strange fact? As users of All for One, we have no quirk factor in our bodies, which is why we are signaled as quirkless. Oh, but if I remember, your doctor only checked for your foot, right? An extra bone? I have it too, you know. Ha ha ha, fools. No one is completely quirkless nowadays. But with all the quirks in your body, you must have a great quantity of quirk factor, right? Good question. I never checked. Was where the conversation briefly ended, right up till Izuku grabbed his notebook. Oh, also, I changed my hero costume. It's a bit awkward, but you really inspired me to make it, and oh, sorry, I forgot you couldn't. No. I'm sure that whatever you designed, it must be great. The same period, at UA, Nezu would occasionally enter the teacher's room to have a brief conversation or just grab some coffee. That's unusual, ha ha ha. Hey Eraser. Come here for a second. At the moment, he wasn't actually. Greetings. However, from a different perspective, he continued to issue the payroll so that the employees could deal with him. The afternoon was insufficient for Aizawa to recuperate from the long nights and the upcoming workdays, so she really needed some rest. However, Nezu persisted in his harassment, so he courageously dragged his body to Nezu after emerging from his sleeping bag. What is this? He inquired, his annoyance evident. Midoriya's costume. At first our partners who works the creation of all the students' equipment sent it back to me because they believed it was a bad joke, ha ha ha. When he first started, Aizawa paid no attention, hoping to be fired shortly. However, he rubbed his eyes and discovered the issue with Izuku's costume when Nezu mentioned a joke. It appeared really malevolent. That's indeed a bad joke, a very bad one. The entire body appeared normal, with a set of strengthened gloves and a black and green outfit designed to facilitate movement. This detail felt strange, but why not? And lastly, the head. A black helmet and some sort of mask with a bunch of had taken its place. Tubes? Aizawa wasn't even certain that he was seeing that correctly. I wonder what inspired him. Well, I'm still sending it back with an excuse about this mistake. You are not gonna let him wear such a thing? Are you? I am, I swear. If you think you can allow everything only because you are. Oh, so that's why you are in a bad mood today, you didn't know? I feared that you would. You were right. So now tell me, why did you give him a chance if you think he can't stand up to our level? After all, you left your tablet on purpose, did you? Nezu was left alone when Aizawa quietly exited the room, saying, because I was in the same position as he was. Well. Nezu pulled out several sheets of paper with the words, not exactly when it comes to written results, ha ha ha, printed on them. Each sheet had the large word, perfect, written on it. Later that evening. Good. Now there is something I would like to show you. Despite his lack of physical strength, Sensei's eccentricities made him as strong as hundreds of people banding together. See, can we do a break? Izuku gasped. No, now come here and take my hand. Why your hand? Yes, it's a small trick but it can be useful. I want you to pull one of my Quirk slowl. No, I already said I will never do that again. Sensei raised both of his hands and formed a small ball of fire in one of them. Now try, and remember, I said to pull slowly. Right now we are just working on mastering your control over all for one. You never practiced, did you? Sensei said. I said pull, I never said take. There is a small limit between those two. And in this gap your opponent can't use his quirk. Izuku softly took Sensei's other hand and said, oh, of course no. It was enormous, so many peculiarities. I can't find. In an increasingly combative tone, Sensei said, are you even trying to find it? Do not give me any bad excuse and pull it. Izuku pulled. I think I got it. He could sense that the quirk was growing more and more resistant as he spoke slowly, and that the fireball was also getting smaller. Good. Now close your eyes and tell me when you feel the limit. When Izuku opened his eyes, the flame had vanished. Here. Good. Now release. Let's see if you were right. The fireball reappeared once Izuku let go of the oddity. Perfect. The user doesn't feel anything as long as you don't try to actually take it. They will only be confused by this little trick and you will be at the same level as them. Now let's do this a few hundreds times just so you can master it. I'm supposed to be in my bed right now. You were the one who asked for help, and I'm not letting you go until you have finished. Izuku, hey. Are you ready for? She exclaimed as she saw her pal traveling to UA before her. When he turned around, Ochako was about to give him a quick pat on the back, but instead she encountered a little Aizawa. Are you okay? She asked, alarmed. Yes. Absolutely. I'm just a bit off today. Izuku was so focused on staying awake that he took a moment to recognize Ochako. Did you forget to sleep? If he could tell the truth, he would explain that the King of Demons tormented him until he turned into a tool of chaos and devastation. Well, I kinda ended up training all night, hee hee hee. However, in the end, that also sounds cool. You shouldn't have done that. Beside, today we owe, don't you know? All Might is a teacher. Some students were talking about that when I was walking home yesterday. That's so cool, my parents won't believe me, beamed Ochako as she unintentionally struck the air. Oh, in fact I knew, was Izuku's honest confession. You knew? Hey, it was a secret, I couldn't just tell everyone, and you would have know eventually? Sure. What exactly did you do yesterday? Well I worked on my costume, yes. I was working on some upgrades and I ended up falling asleep on my desk. If only that were the case. They experimented with many various quirks such that Izuku could sense any quirk much more quickly than he could previously, and Sensei wasn't kind to him at all. Sensei claimed that each quirk had a unique touch and that it was more difficult to defeat him since he possessed an almost limitless number of them, whereas an opponent would only possess one. Last night, they trained to be able to rapidly recognize and pull a peculiarity without pulling too much or too little. 1. A few minutes later, in a classroom. I heard All Might was massive. A student named Honta Siro commented. Do you think All Might will be able to fit inside the room? Dude, he's really tall, Denki Kaminari retorted. Every time he heard a student's voice, Izuku sought to mentally substitute their name because he had no friends yet and he might collaborate with them in the future. It seemed that everyone now knew that All Might was a professor at the University of Arizona, and he was expected to begin the day with Class 1A. Despite being late, he got off to a terrific start. However, Aizawa was as well, so ultimately, not much change. Ochako was fiddling with a pen when she saw Izuku's analytical notebook emerge from his bag. She gestured briefly at his notebook and said, "Hey Izuku, have you ever done anything on All Might?" "Oh, All Might? I must have at least 2 entirely dedicated to him?" "Wow. Tell me about it." Well, where should I start? Izuku had to keep it short because the last thing he wanted to do was to make strange remarks about quirks in front of Ochako once more. His quirk is classified and he never speaks about it, but we can put it as an emitter. But it's a strength enhancement quirk at the same time, so Izuku was cut off by a loud, booming voice from outside the classroom. Nobody would do it this way, but everyone was too shocked to find this awkward. All Might was in the classroom, both hands gripping the door to keep his body from falling. "I am." Everyone stared at the door, waiting for what was about to enter, coming through like a normal person. "Yes. As you have all heard, I am teaching at UA this year, and I'll be teaching hero basic training. You will be trained in various ways to learn the basics of being a hero. So far that should be self-explanatory," All Might said, raising his fist in the air and standing behind the teacher's desk. Every pupil appeared to be totally enthralled by All Might. From Izuku's perspective, this was starting to get a little unsettling. "Let's not waste any more time." All Might abruptly turned around and showed the students a small sign that read, "Battle. That's what we will be doing today. Combat training." Izuku thought that someone had suddenly grown much more enthusiastic and interested in All Might's explanations. All Might, holding a controller and many cases with numbers on them, pointed to the left wall of the classroom and said, "And to go with that, this, here, costumes made based on your quirk registration and the requests you sent before school starts." Along with the other students, Izuku got up to retrieve his case. He opened it swiftly and discovered that everything he had requested was inside: the mask, the suit, and the new gloves. All Might gave the order, "After you change, gather in ground beta," before heading out of the chamber. Ochako was present as well, and she was quite interested in what kind of costume Izuku would wear because she thought he had no peculiarities. Izuku continued to stare at his outfit for a while, paying particular attention to the helmet. She pointed to the hat and said, "Can I see?" She was shocked to see that the helmet was formed like a black skull when Izuku handed it to her. "Yes, of course," she exclaimed. She muttered, her eyes lifeless, Izuku. "I'm not questioning your tastes, but it's scary." "Why yeah. I know, at first I wanted to be a hero just like All Might, a hero which always smiles, but smiling doesn't always help people. Someone made me realize that sometimes you have to do what has to be done, even if it means being the villain of the story. So that's my costume, I'm the good villain." Ochako gazed at the helmet shaped like a skull for a moment more. She grinned. "I guess you were right, let's do our best." "Absolutely. In ground beta later." As the students stepped onto ground beta, All Might said, "They say the clothes make the man. Young men and ladies, be fully aware. From now on, you are heroes." After glancing over the costumes, All Might grinned and said, "That's great everyone, you all look," before noticing that someone was running through the entrance tunnel a little late. He spent a great deal of time going through each student's paperwork, so he knew it was Izuku Midoriya. If his teaching handbook in his pocket was sufficient. Ochako was waiting behind the group to watch Izuku in his costume, and he looked fantastic, but she wanted to know where her pal was concealing his unmanageable hairstyle beneath his helmet. Who knows? He may not have a lot of hair, and they are really fluffy. Izuku was acting awkwardly, likely because it was the first time he had seen her wearing her costume. "Izuku, you look wonderful in your costume. It's really down to earth," she said. "I really should have written what I wanted, mine ended up being a skin-tight bodysuit, it's kinda embarrassing," she said. Izuku commented, "And no, you look great too, really." His voice sounded a little odd because of the helmet. She looked quite adorable, even if Ochako was somewhat correct. All Might's voice boomed, "Young man, this costume will have to be changed," adding, "especially the helmet." But it was approved, right? Indeed it was. Do not take this as a harsh review, but in our world your costume is what's going to determine who you are and how people will look at you. Why yes. As All Might was about to explain everything, he was inundated with questions. One person even inquired about his cape on his costume or whether he looked good. "Good. Now let's start, shall we? It is time for combat training. This is a real battle and you won't be fighting robots this time." The game ultimately had a bomb scenario with 2 teams, the heroes and the villains, and the goal was to neutralize the other team. The hero team had to come into contact with the fictitious bomb, while the villain team had to guard it. At least this time, All Might made the decision to keep the situation straightforward enough. There was no risk of the bomb going off, the villains holding hostages, or anything else that might emerge from Nezu's or Aizawa's imagination. After a few seconds, he began distributing the teams a tablet that looked like Aizawa's. You will be divided in team of 2. We will do this exercise once and then we will change the teams again. But Ochako did not play for any team, and neither was Izuku. With awkwardness, Ochako questioned, Is this a bug? Well no, Izuku, you won't be participating. I'm sorry, I should have told you this back in class so you wouldn't have to even put on your. Why? Izuku exclaimed. Why what? All Might asked, unable to understand Izuku's anger, which only made him feel worse. Why am I not participating? It's because you are quirkless, I thought you would. You thought what? I'm in the hero course. What if I'm quirkless? It doesn't change anything. All Might nearly yelled, why you could get hurt, during his turn, but he held back because he had to keep up a certain appearance while speaking to a kid in front of the entire class. Izuku would likely be pounding All Might in the face until he bled if he weren't so constrained. Just like the other students. How can you think that I took the hero course if it isn't to become a hero? I agree. That's unfair to judge him like this because he is quirkless. Ochako joined him. No one else dared to respond at All Might himself, but Izuku and Ochako could see that some of the students were genuinely feeling bad about not having the courage to stand up for him or briefly sharing the same thought. Naturally, All Might disagreed. Izuku shouldn't be in the hero course, much less one of this type. Fine, Izuku and Ochako, you will be on the same team. However, the expressions on the other pupils' faces were too much to handle. The first exercise. Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Lida as the villains. Against Ochako Uraraka and Izuku Midoriya as the heroes. In front of a fictitious skyscraper a few minutes later. Izuku was unable to determine if All Might had intentionally created this or whether the universe detested him. So. Any plan? Ochako asked cautiously. Izuku was not feeling well, and his expressionless gaze at the building was cruel. Well, I don't want to act as a leader B, but if you need a suggestion. Izuku once more glanced at the structure. I do not know exactly where is the bomb, but it must be big enough to blow up the whole building, so I would say either on the 3rd floor or 5th one. Now, Tenya is fast, but his quirk doesn't allow him to take complicated trajectories, so if you use your quirk on him, he might not be able to counter-attack. And when it comes to Katsuki, Izuku caressed his neck for over 15 seconds, while Ochako clapped her hands beside his head in an attempt to break the lull. What? You weren't mumbling this time, but you weren't talking either, so I thought you needed help. What's wrong? What's wrong? All Might. If even he looks down on quirkless, it's just hard to digest. Then prove him wrong? If you keep thinking about this, it will only diminish our chance to win? You are right. So, Katsuki, he won't listen to Tenya and will run around recklessly to find us. Well, rather me, so. Tenya could follow, of course, but that wouldn't work, so he will be the one defending the bomb. And my quirk is our best asset against him. Exactly. I'll handle Katsuki. It's not like he would be smart enough to pursue you. How are you gonna deal with him? I told you on our way to UA, you remember, I trained like hell yesterday. You look just like Aizawa in the end. We still have 2 minutes ahead of us. Any last suggestion in case something goes wrong? Izuku pointed to the sky and said, yes, we don't have to enter by the door according to what All Might didn't say. Oh, I see. Katsuki, wait, if you silence 4 eyes. I'm gonna show this stupid Deku where is his place. Tenya was disappointed. He had already anticipated that Izuku would take this exercise too seriously due to All Might's remarks, but now there was an additional issue. His own teammate. He wasn't sure if Katsuki was acting or if it was a real animosity. He would also behave like a villain if this were the case, but, for that, his teammate was just too honest. He said, you are going to make us lose, but got no response. Therefore, he chose to protect the bomb himself in order to increase his chances of winning rather than attempting to reason with him. Outside the building, in the meantime, looks like you were right, Izuku. I'm kinda grateful that Katsuki is still a complete violent and angry bastard. Sorry for swearing. No, I agree. The bomb isn't directly next to a window. I'm gonna have to find another way around. Okay, then I'll distract Katsuki and give you as much time as possible. If I manage to beat him, I'll join you. In order to avoid seeing Katsuki, Ochako nodded and utilized her personal quirk to enter the building straight to the 4th floor, which was the one directly above the bomb. Izuku tried to maintain some secrecy by running straight inside by the main entrance at the same moment. It's not like he wanted to see Katsuki face to face. Katsuki, on the other hand, was not attempting to blend in. His footfall were audible throughout the building. Izuku sensed that he was approaching him. He already had a plan. He would wait for Katsuki to pass him by hiding in a corner. Then he would put his arms around his neck to gain a firm hold on his body and his peculiarity. Since his quirk won't work, Katsuki will be perplexed, and Izuku will only need to coerce him into giving up in order to defeat him. Then no. Katsumi was too obstinate to give up. Therefore this final step was just not doable. There you are. Izuku instinctively dodged a grenade gauntlet that was headed his way, causing a section of the wall where he was hiding to collapse. Sensei was correct. That was undoubtedly something he would need to get rid of, he repeated once more. Using the momentum created by Katsuki removing his gauntlet from the wall, he tumbled away. Die. With his left arm ready for an explosion and his right arm outstretched toward Izuku, Katsuki charged straight for him. Katsuki's explosion wasn't ready yet, and he wasn't quick or powerful enough to fight Izuku, so he grabbed his right arm as he sprinted straight in front of him. After pulling Katsuki toward the ground and slamming his body into it, he briefly noticed Katsuki coughing up saliva. However, Izuku no longer had the edge of surprise even if he was on the ground. His only choice was to flee and find a more effective way to neutralize Katsuki. Tenya was watching to bomb when Ochako found the bomb room. Izuku said she only needed to take the bomb because he wouldn't be able to fight back directly. Tenya's gaze was fixed on the sole entryway. Then, stealth was not an option. Ochako dashed into the room, jumped over Tenya, and grabbed the explosive using her special ability. Tanya was taken aback but not without options, so he used his quirk to grab the fictitious bomb and carry it to another location in the room. Nice try, but I won't let you touch it. Izuku didn't anticipate that. Tenya had the ability to move the bomb, and because of his peculiarity, it was practically impossible to capture him. Ochako got in touch with Izuku via a communication device and said, "I'm inside the bomb room but we have a problem." Oh really? Katsuki was utilizing his blasts to gain speed and catch up to Izuku, who had to shout for Ochako to hear him. You can't run forever. No, he couldn't, but he was getting him exactly where he wanted to be. If Izuku's plan worked, maybe Ochako would find out what to do. He only needed to check one thing now. Izuku reached the ideal location, a dead end. Katsuki came the following instant. Trapped like a rat, he exclaimed, lifting his right arm in Izuku's direction. This couldn't just be a detail, he knew. Izuku heard All Might's voice on the radio. Katsuki, stop, you will. He clearly knew what Katsuki was going to do, but he didn't give a damn about the outcome. Burn. Tenya was momentarily destabilized by a huge explosion that was significantly larger than the previous ones. Ochako took advantage of the situation, aiming straight for Tenya instead of the bomb, and she was able to seize his leg. She swiftly used her quirk on him, but Tenya didn't say anything last. Not yet. Despite Tenya's knowledge that he wouldn't be able to control his direction, he used his quirk to firmly hold Ochako and halt her in order to get her as far away from the explosion as possible. Damn it. Tenya was unaware of this vulnerability, but Ochako was still taking use of it at the moment, and he sincerely hoped she wouldn't become ill. 3 years prior. What are you scared of the most? The most? I'm not scared of death, so that minimize my field of answer. I would say, what I can't control. What you can't control, like the rain, control is. Well, in a way I would call it freedom. A slave has no control, it isn't free. It lives and dies as a prisoner. Yes, I'm scared of what I can't control. I'm scared of what I can't see or can't change. But, then death, I'm not scared of death. I'm a believer somehow, you know. I know where I'm going and I'm not scared because whatever happens I truly believe I made the right choices. Why did you ask this question, Izuku? What if? What if one day I don't have the choice? What if one day I'm forced to do something? That's a complex question. Beside, there is no real context. I can't answer that for you. If I did, I would give you one choice, and you would assimilate this choice as the only possible one. There is never only one option. There is always at least two. A lot of smoke was present, and Katsuki was pushed back a little, but he was happy with how his costume worked and how he annihilated Deku. 4 eyes. I'm done with the quirkless trash. Finish the pink bitch all rigged. Katsuki's face was suddenly grabbed by a hand and struck the wall directly. Izuku was in the center of the fading smoke. Not even a scratch, undamaged. How? Why, you stupid Deku? Katsuki punched with his right arm, and Izuku ducked to his left, subsequently grasping Katsuki's arm. And he made direct touch with his skin this time. Katsuki was going to utilize his left arm to make an explosion. However, he was totally disoriented, His thoughts went blank for a few seconds, and he couldn't feel his quirk anymore. Something was wrong, really wrong. Izuku took out the capture tape and headbutted Katsuki with his helmet. If he continued to pound Katsuki's head in that manner, he could seriously injure him, but the outcome was that Katsuki was losing all control. As he pushed Katsuki to his knees, Izuku whispered, "How does it feel?" Katsuki continued to struggle. Perhaps he was attempting to set off explosions. It was pointless because Izuku was holding onto his peculiarity tightly and wouldn't let go. To make sure he wouldn't try anything foolish, Izuku wrapped the capture tape around Katsuki's arms and squeezed it firmly till Katsuki gave a slight grunt. To get so close from you, Sensei. With his face now pressed against the earth, Katsuki attempted to glance at Izuku, but all he could see was a black skull. "And it all ends up on the ground?" he asked. It was overwhelming. He lost? All Might declared on the air, Katsuki has been arrested, although he didn't seem to genuinely think Izuku had triumphed. "Ochako, can you hear me?" Yes. At the same time, Izuku could picture Ochako's circumstances based on the sounds coming from the communication device. "Are you Auri?" "Yes. We don't have much time. I need your position and the position of the bomb in the room," if Izuku was correct. After Ochako gave her location, she was able to seize a pillar and attempted to kick Tenya, but he was as bad as a mosquito. However, Izuku ordered her to grasp anything and hold onto it, but she didn't understand his plan. "Time is running out. Even if you defeated Katsuki, we will win, ha 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 ha. Tenya, please just drop your villain act, it's just our word now." Oh. As part of his plot, Izuku seized one of Katsuki's gauntlets. Katsuki shouted, "Don't touch that." He would most likely be attempting to bite Izuku at this very moment if he didn't have his arm tied or if he had no arms at all. It was as easy as pulling the pin like a real grenade. "Stop barking, would you?" Ochako was only 2 meters behind the bomb, which was 5 meters to his left above him. After pulling the pin, Tenya was losing his hold, but Izuku told her to hold on tight because the floor exploded and he had planned everything out. Ochako was rather impressed because Tenya was no longer preventing her from moving forward and the bomb was too far away to be affected by the blast. Ochako launched herself toward the bomb with her quirk and she exclaimed aloud, "Bomb RETREIVED," to show how happy she was. Hero teams win. Izuku gazed at the large hole he had made in the ceiling, which nearly touched the roof, and said, "Well, I won." You? Shut up, would you? It's about time you learn about losing and keeping it low. I'm done with all your trash talk about quirkless people. In fact, I'm done with everyone who thinks just like you, and oh, you aren't the only one, no, far from that," Izuku said as he approached Katsuki's. "You are the worst one." Katsuki struggled once again, but Izuku's method of tying him up prevented him from getting to his feet. "I guess Tenya will grab you on his way out. I don't see any reason to help you. It's not like I would have any at this point." Ochako was the first person Izuku met after leaving the building. It is clear that she overheard his brief chat with Katsuki. "We made it. Yeah. Thanks to you. Without your quirk, I'm almost certain that the bomb would have been out of our reach. Don't try to spoil my ego, he. You did everything. That was incredible. You defeated Katsuki. But what happened? There was a big explosion and then it was confusing. Now did you avoid that?" "Well, you see, Katsuki's explosions are created via a substance that his body produces, mostly around his hands. This same substance is stocked inside the tube grenade of his costume. He was the one who created the first explosion. Just a few minutes ago. Burn. I crouched in a corner to avoid the explosion and used the window to escape the heat since Katsuki believed he had caught me in a dead end. However, he was too preoccupied with me to notice that the dead end had a larger room with a window at the end. He seemed so content. Since the throat and head are the finest places to destabilize an opponent, I just needed to attack him when he let his guard down. I didn't intend to harm him, but my target was the head. The other gauntlet was the source of the second explosion. Admittedly, I was sort of presently improvising. Improvising? But then that's even cooler. No, it's not. It was stupid. I was stupid. Imagine that it was a real situation. Here I knew my opponents, especially Katsuki. In a real situation I wouldn't, and I'm sure our goal wouldn't simply be to grab the bomb. We would have to put it in a safe place and then disarm it. The real life is way more complex than this game. Today I didn't win anything. I just ended up acting like an idiot. Ochako sought to reassure Izuku, saying, Izuku, don't say that. It's not the real life. We aren't heroes yet. Then tell me, why didn't we just rush inside the bomb room by one of the window while Katsuki was done? We could have ended everything in about 3 minutes. Izuku was correct. Ochako didn't give this any thought. At the time, Izuku's proposal appeared ideal. Then why? Why did you choose to confront Katsuki? Izuku insisted on using the word certain when he said, a certain someone was looking at me. Ochako was aware of the person Izuku was referring to. Well, could you do me a favor then? For putting me in danger? Why yes? Izuku asked, turning around awkwardly as though he had lost all sense of seriousness. Cheer up. We won. Sure sorry. Izuku was correct. The person was entirely different behind the mask. Within the observing space. Great, everyone is back. Now can someone tell me who was the MVP of this exercise and why? A red-costumed girl with black hair held up her hand. Yayorozu Momo. Yes. Either Tenya or Izuku. Both of them managed to exploit, as much as they could, the capacities and talents of their team. In the villain team, Tenya didn't have much choice as Katsuki wasn't going to cooperate. This is part of why they lost. However, Tenya managed to defend the bomb against Ochako when he was clearly disadvantaged considering Ochako's quirk. At least not yet. All Might didn't interrupt her. Since he didn't anticipate her providing so much information, he wasn't sure if he should. The hero team exploited the division in the villain team to recover the bomb. Izuku knew that Ochako would have the advantage against Tenya and that he would not be able to fight back, so even if Ochako couldn't reach the bomb, she was putting so pressure on Tenya. Also, Izuku used Katsuki's behavior and his own quirk against the villain team to recover the bomb. At the same time, he neutralized the biggest threat in the villain team and helped Ochako to reach the bomb. In a real situation, all they would have to do to finish would be to neutralize Tenya before disarming the bomb. The majority of the kids were in awe of Momo's cunning, and everyone was stunned. Well. You are right, good job. Does anyone have something to add? No? Good, next teams will be? As the day progressed, Izuku had the chance to observe and evaluate the peculiarities of his classmates. Some even spoke with him, primarily because they were impressed by his performance, and others because they saw that he was writing in a brand new notebook that had been made specifically for his time at UA. As soon as the final teams finished, All Might praised them all and fled as if someone had robbed him. Ochako said, maybe he had to use the restroom. As he completed writing in his book, Izuku noted, he wasn't even trying to go fast at this point. I would say that he was at around 2% of his maximum speed. They noticed the buildings that had been used for the exercise as they made their way to Ground Beta's exit. To be honest, they were in disarray, especially the one they had used and another that had been filled with ice by a student named Shoto Todoroki. While traveling, Tenya called him, Izuku, and said, I saw that you were taking notes. See, can I see them? Of course. I can even give you a full copy of this one once I'm home. Really? I mean, if it doesn't bother you, of course, it's your own work and I wouldn't like to steal it. No, everyone can use it. In fact, I'm glad people find it interesting. Back into my old school, the other students thought that I was some kind of creep. Well, I don't blame them. I was writing it during the classes. Someone even used their quirk on me to stop me from mumbling. Wow, did you get hurt? What happened next? Nothing, to be honest. It was only electricity. Nothing? Like nothing for real? Your teachers didn't react at all? No, they. Young Midoriya. Izuku was speaking to Tenya when he nearly ran into All Might. Why yes? Izuku didn't like the solemn tone of All Might's voice, but he wasn't in a position to refuse. Could you give me a minute of your time? We have to talk. To which he said, yes. Yes, of course. He turned to Tenya and bowed gently, saying, good, sorry to interrupt your conversation. Tenya forced himself not to salute in front of his teacher, saying, it's nothing, sir. Whatever you have to say to Midoriya will have to be significant. After a couple of minutes, Izuku was led into a little office that was clearly not All Might's. It was vacant, with a desk and 2 couches divided by a tiny table. Izuku stated, I misjudged you and, in response to All Might's offer of a Coke, I'm sorry for what I said. If you are here to apologize, I really don't care. Oh well, I'm glad you accept, All Might grinned. No, you didn't understand what I said. I don't want any of your excuses. What you said earlier seemed were clear. According to you, only those who have great and powerful quirks can be heroes. I never said that but you suggested it. I don't hate you. I do not see any reason to do so. I just want to tell you that you don't have to pretend. Pretend? Why would I do that? Isn't that what everyone does? On the first day as my teacher you managed to act exactly like mostly everyone toward a quirkless person. All Might had stopped grinning, nor was he responding. When Izuku was getting his bag, All Might was standing between him and the door, saying, Now if you will excuse me, I must go. No, I can't let you leave like this. Please believe me, what I said earlier didn't reflect my thoughts. I'm sorry, I messed up, yes, and as your teacher my duty is to fix this. So please, give me another chance. Izuku was truly thinking about for a second, chance. He finally came across someone who appeared to genuinely desire to be pardoned for his remarks about oddballs. For once. For the first time ever, someone was expressing regret. Izuku approached the door and All Might stepped aside, saying, "All right. But watch what you say, not everyone is as lucky as me. See you tomorrow, I guess." "You too young Midoriya," he exclaimed, already flashing his trademark grin as though nothing had occurred. Izuku ultimately lost sight of the idea of a smiling hero as a result. Sensei made some observations regarding the fact that it's just not a solution. "But before you go, tell me, who taught you those moves? The one you used during the exercise," Izuku said as a hand grasped his shoulder while he was out. After a brief moment of astonishment, Izuku responded nonchalantly, "I managed them myself, to be honest," and he added a tiny smile to convey his pride. "Oh, I see. Just wanted to know, you are free now," Izuku said as he departed. In order to prevent All Might from following him or coming up with another reason to keep him here, he made sure to walk quickly enough this time. However, All Might wouldn't, and he witnessed Izuku's moves somewhere for a very long time. How could he have forgotten? The same ones were employed by his adversary. And it worked? He couldn't use his quirk? No, Sensei, Katsuki couldn't do anything. He looked so lost. In fact, I only used all for one for about 10 seconds. I think after that Katsuki was too scared to use his quirk correctly. Thank you, really. Ha ha ha, I'm so proud of my student. Tell me, how does it feel to win? To win? I'm not. I should be satisfied, but I'm not. I won the exercise, yes. But there were so much possibilities. We could have won without even fighting Katsuki. And in the end I still managed to pick the one plan in which I risked losing. Then tell me why? Why did you do that? Sensei was pressuring Izuku to explain the reason since he understood exactly why and wanted to boost his confidence. I had to defeat him, once. To prove them wrong, to show them that I could become a hero even if I was quirkless, to the students, to Katsuki, to All Might, to Ochako. Ah yes. Your new friend, how is she? You mean, how? Well, how are you progressing with her? Progressing? It's hard, I'm always scared of being weird in front of her or to be some kind of burden. I know I never had much friends and maybe I'm over-exaggerating. I'm scared of doing things too quickly. Ha 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 ha. You didn't take her on a date yet? No? You haven't eaten your lunch together? Only for the entrance exam. You didn't do any sort of hangout with her? No, then you are fine. Oh, last question. You two aren't permanently texting each other's? I heard this generation keeps doing that. When Izuku's mother called and asked where he was, he replied, "No, we aren't into that really, or else what could we tell each other during the day? I should probably go. Thank you again, Sensei. This techniques belongs to you now, don't give me all the credits." "Well, yes, tonight we won't be doing anything, you have to rest, enjoy your victory." "Thank you." Izuku bowed to Sensei before rushing into his flat, which was already rather late. Please be careful, a decade ago, the incident's day. Izuku always does, he remembers. The majority of the children he knew were given their idiosyncrasies on that day. Wings, fingers that can be extended. Explosion. He received nothing at all. Like everyone else, he went to the doctor the other day. It's not as though the aforementioned doctor kept Izuku's quirklessness to himself. No. He told his grandson and the rest of his family about it. Perhaps he believed that nothing noteworthy would occur. Yes, like the majority of those who ruined his life, he was innocent. Izuku, however, had a completely different theory. He also vividly recalls the doctor telling Izuku and his mother that he was quirkless if he truly earned this term. Izuku was gifted with the most potent and perhaps most feared quirk in the world, but he didn't try to look any farther because he had an additional bone in his foot. First of all, the doctor didn't try to avoid hurting Izuku when he declared himself quirkless. And he stated, "You should give up," and "dream stays dream," nearly exclusively. As like they weren't worthy of his attention, he nearly shoved him and his mother out of his office. Did you know that a person's doctor may choose to keep them under observation if they have a quirk? Or convene them for a series of meetings? He must have had a lot of money because he had a kindergarten full of kids. There's no need to elaborate on Izuku's theory just yet. In any case, the majority of the children he knew had acquired their peculiarities. The majority of them went to the park to play in the afternoon. Izuku, Katsuki, and several other children were present. Like everyone else, Katsuki was already experimenting with his quirk. However, his test subjects were other children. It's not as if no adults were present, they were just not paying attention. A young boy with an extended tongue quirk was attacked by Katsuki and a group of other kids who chose to follow him as a leader, and the boy was unable to protect himself. Katsuki had a problem. He wanted to be a hero, so why was he fighting someone who was weaker than him? Did he find this enjoyable? He was laughing. Did he find this as amusing as the day he abruptly abandoned Izuku due of his lack of eccentricity? Izuku moved in front of them. Because his legs were acting on their own, he had no idea what he was doing and had no idea what would happen to him. Kei-chan, stop. You are hurting him, he said, tears streaming down his cheeks. He simply hoped for a miracle at this point, but what type of miracle, because he knew he couldn't do anything. Those who didn't deserve power were granted it by this planet. What do you think you can do, Izuku? Get out of my way. Now. Katsuki threw a warning punch at Izuku, causing a tiny explosion. Izuku would not be harmed, but he seemed more terrified than ever at that moment. However, no, what you are doing is wrong, is still true. Move you. Damn it. Katsuki was disturbed by something. The other mid fled as Izuku turned to gaze behind him, saying, "You are going to pay for that." Izuku struggled, but it was in vain, as the other children with Katsuki held him before he could do anything. As he approached his hand from Izuku's face, Katsuki said, "Don't move, all right? I don't want to miss your face." His hands were glistening with little explosions. No, please. He fought even harder, and no, with his right arm free, he took Katsuki's hand and pushed it away, and then. He can't recall what transpired. The last thing he remembers is when something emerged from his left hand. He was lying on the couch in his apartment when he woke up, and his mother was beside him, her eyes streaming down her cheeks. His left arm hurt more than anything else. It actually burned. What exactly happened at the park? My baby Izuku, she said, giving him a hug in spite of his physical condition. Weakly, he muttered, Mom, what happened? Katsuki's quirk became uncontrollable and you were caught into an explosion. No. Although he didn't witness it, it couldn't have been his quirk getting out of control given the circumstances. He felt bad. Mom. Did I make Katsuki do that? What if he attempted self-defense and injured the other kids? What if he was solely to blame? Izuku attempted to get up but was only able to sit on the couch. Izuku. Don't try to do anything reckless, the doctor said that. The doctor is wrong. What, Mom? I have a quirk. Today. Izuku finally gets up at a respectable hour and makes it to UA without any difficulties. For once, could this be a typical day? On the route to UA, Ochako failed to appear. Izuku was correct when he believed she was already in the classroom and discovered her chatting with another girl. He couldn't recall her name, but he knew she had a mutation quirk. Perhaps a frog quirk. Seated beside her, "Good morning, Ochako," remarked. Izuku. You look great today. You slept? I did. I enjoyed our victory from yesterday as you said in. As he placed Izuku's notebook on his desk, Tenya's very familiar voice called out, Midoriya. Thank you for letting me take a look at your work. It really helped me and I must say what you wrote is very remarkable. Everything about Tenya seemed over the top. He was always trying to be strict and respectful. I'm glad it helped you. Izuku thought it was impolite of Tenya to cut him off in the middle of his conversation, but he was a kind guy, so he could forgive him. Tenya then proceeded directly to his desk and took a seat. Turning around, Izuku turned to face Ochako. Well, in fact I don't have anything else to say, he said. Everybody paused when Ochako saw Aizawa approach the classroom. Haha, that's okay. We didn't receive any timetable for today, that's odd, says Ochako. Aizawa pulled a sleeping bag out from beneath his desk and snoozed in front of everyone. Well, it seems like you are getting used to how it works here. Anyway, today you are going to choose your class representative. I don't care how you do it, just avoid making too much noise. Tenya got up from his desk and said, okay, we should vote to choose our representatives. That's obvious, but we barely know each other's, and once we have picked our representatives it's not like we might be able to change so easily, Izuku said. Izuku is right. How are we supposed to vote for people we barely know? Ochako was next. Momo Yaoyorozu suggested, simply, we will vote but we will add one more rule, no one can vote for themselves. The purpose of this proposition was not clear to the students. Hey, mind explaining? Kirishima asked. If we vote right now everyone will either not vote or vote for themselves, most likely, So if we impose this rule we might end up getting a class representative that most of the students acknowledge, she said. Ochako was asked to break the awkward silence by asking, so, are we voting now then? Tenya said, yes, anyone has a few sheets of paper? The incident day. Izuku's mother was in the kitchen, doing everything she could to protect her son, and she felt her entire world crumble when Mitsuki contacted her. Izuku was now hardly conscious and was talking incoherently about being responsible and having a quirk. He felt guilty for causing his pals pain. He already found it difficult to go without a peculiarity and his son yelled, Mom! From the living room. When Inko entered the living room, she noticed Izuku staring at his hands after dropping what she was holding. His hands were blazing and emitted red lights. Izuku. You have a quirk, my baby, I'm so happy. Inko embraced her child, but as she did, she felt as like she was being repeatedly stabbed in the back. And she felt worn out after that. She fell to the floor, and nothing. Izuku couldn't comprehend what had occurred. His mother was comatose on the ground, her arms still wrapped around his small body. The strange red light had gone, but the pain was still there, and both of his hands were heating. He stretched for the table, but it was too far away, and he had to use it to get to his feet. If only it were possible to close. Then he noticed it, the table twitching just enough to get within a centimeter of him. This was something he had already seen. It was the peculiarity of his mom. He possesses his mother's peculiarity. He used Katsuki's quirk, his mother's quirk, and his own quirk to create the explosion back at the playground. He can also employ different quirls if he comes into contact with them. And as Izuku continued to try to make sense of what was going on, he realized that this strange sensation he was experiencing in his hands, similar to what he did with Katsuki, he was drawing something from within his mother that was not tangible. He made a strange move. No, he didn't pull. A quirk was stolen by Izuku. He turned to face his mother, who was lying asleep on the floor of the main room. He placed both of his hands on his mother's body and shouted, put it back, as red lights came on. Put it back, he screamed once more, his volume even higher. Today. The outcomes were unexpected. With 4 votes in the end, Izuku trailed Momo by just 7. Well then, that makes me the president and you, Izuku, the vice president, she said. Thank you B, but Katsuki yelled across the room, what the FCK? How can this shithead be elected? Izuku was taken aback to discover that Katsuki genuinely gave a damn about things like selecting the class reps. It was, of course, because Katsuki detested being in any way less than Izuku. In the first place, he had no desire to be elected. He was elected in a fair way, just like Momo. What's even your problem with him? Shut up 4 eyes, and Aizawa's scarf ultimately enveloped Katsuki and threw him into a wall. Can you ever stop screaming? Anyway, I guess you are done now with your little election, and say I finally managed to sleep for a bit, moaned the instructor. Izuku was shocked that it took an hour to do a minor formality when the bell rang, but Aizawa seemed unconcerned and had already fallen back asleep. Congratulations, Izuku, Ochako exclaimed. Thank you. Say, did you vote for me? Well actually I voted for Momo. I mean, you are a bit shy. Izuku finished. Why yes. So, I thought it would be stupid to impose you such a responsibility? I admitted, I didn't really want to be president but I'm just vice so I guess Momo will do most of the work. I hope I do not sound lazy saying that. Sounds fine. Just avoid saying it out loud, people could misunderstand. Izuku returned to the primary query, asking, but then who voted for me? Behind Izuku, Lita exclaimed, I did? Why? Izuku was actually questioning whether Lita truly needed to frighten him to make his presence known. Because you have natural capacities of leadership. The way you analyzed each people in our class was simply fabulous. It clearly shows that you managed to know each of us in only a few days. As Tenya complimented him on his small analytical skills, Izuku felt nothing. He didn't even learn their names or speak to half of the class at least once. He merely examined their peculiarity. And Izuku could only wonder why 3 other people voted for him if Tenya did so because of the analytical book. Perhaps because he took the entrance exam first? Because yesterday he ruined Katsuki completely? Whatever the reason, he was elected not because people believed he truly possessed the skills to represent their class. Everyone was gone now, including Tenya. Izuku? Are you okay? Confused, he said, what? You. While Tenya was talking you ended up staring the ground. He went to have lunch with the others. I don't think he noticed thought. Did you have something on your mind? No, it was 5 years ago. Run. Keep going. They won't stop hunting you until you get home, so keep running and don't turn around. 5 years. They made his life miserable for 5 years, and since he was officially quirkless, neither they nor Katsuki cared. Izuku didn't understand how they could find any sort of joy in tormenting him. They had peculiarities, and they were always in a better position, and he didn't. Izuku was aware that such a peculiarity was useless. No. Not at all. He was much more broken the night he found out about his quirk. Indeed, he possessed a peculiarity, but he would never be able to utilize it, and if he did, he would only be perceived as a villain. Good people had nothing and bad people had power in this world, which was completely wrong. The universe even developed ways to weaken the good people. However, Izuku was now clueless about his destination. Given how ancient and even deserted the houses around him appeared, it was clear that he was headed in the wrong way. There was nobody on the streets, so he shouldn't be here. No proof that Katsuki and his companions were ever able to apprehend him. As Izuku continued to drive farther and farther, the streets began to get narrower, and then came to a halt. Izuku gazed around him as the sounds grew closer and begged for a miracle to give him one final chance to get away. To anybody who would listen, he muttered, Please." He took another look around him. A door. Without hesitation, he attempted to open a rusted metal door. Izuku grasped the handle and pulled with all of his effort, barely moving it enough to allow him to pass through. The laughter, the explosions, and the footsteps were still approaching. Izuku crept into the structure and took cover. They vanished after a brief moment. Nothing else was heard by him. Katsuki wasn't shouting or whining about anything. It was strange. Izuku got up and cautiously peered out the window. There was nobody. Then, did Katsuki never pursue him? It was a delusion? He was becoming insane. Izuku laughed. He chuckled at his own sorrow and despair. How much more could he put up with this nightmare? A metallic clang interrupted his laughter. The door slammed shut, and black strings appeared all around him. Red as a glow. Izuku was pulled deeper into the shadowy structure and gagged by the same strings before he could speak. He fought. He knew it wasn't the proper route. There was a reason this area of the city was deserted. He was pulled beneath the earth, or more accurately, he was phasing through it as though his body were made entirely of air. Nothing was visible to Izuku. Everything was dark. After a few seconds, he felt the earth again, and the strings were no longer holding him. A tiny source of light was present. Screens. It was an odd place. In contrast to the structure above this basement. This basement was indeed kept up nicely. Izuku spotted something else as he approached the screens. A hospital bed, vacant. Izuku wasn't strange enough to analyze what was occurring when he felt a hand grip his head and his mind went blank. Now tell me all your secrets. Today. As he was looking at a number of visuals, an elderly man commented, You have to stop going out. Your treatment isn't showing good result. He responded angrily, Did they ever show anything good during all these years? This caused the elderly man to turn around and say, Sorry, I'm not in a good mood today. Ironically, he said, Are you ever? The question appeared out of nowhere. Tell me, doctor, how many quirkless kids have you examined this month? Why would that be of interest to his master? Perhaps he was becoming senile due to the treatment. None? He asked uncertainly. The elderly man was beginning to realize where this was leading. This year then? He asked. None. This kid again, right? You never told me who he was, and every time you come back you look nostalgic. Again, such a state of mind isn't good for. Shut it with the treatment, would you? I'm dying, I'm not stupid. Well, dying. I won't heal anytime soon. No, this kid, he reminds me of myself. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm still your doctor. I owe you a lot and trust me. If you could tell me what's wrong, then you would feel way better, the elderly guy said, turning around and pulling out a piece of paper and a pen. He didn't have to tilt his head around to see his doctor's face, but he did so anyway. Oh, please do not abuse of the situation, Tsubasa. Simply to give their conversation a little more drama. Go on. What's on your mind right now? I went into his head once. Usually I do not use this kind of quirk, it's exhausting. But I had to make sure he wasn't a threat at the moment. And when I did, it was so chaotic. Pain. Sadness. Hate. He didn't have the life I had, but we were similar in so much ways. Like which? Izuku's secret quirk would never be revealed to him by All for One. He wouldn't tell anyone, and the only reason Izuku was still alive was because of All for One. If he didn't sense it at the initial point of touch, then Izuku would still be absent today, let's suppose. He gave the doctor a fierce look and said, didn't I just answer? Let's keep it that way, but maybe you could give me an answer I can exploit? Long ago. He reminisces about the good old days when everything appeared so simple and tiny, but he also recalls how hectic it was at the same time. The world was on the verge of collapse at the time, with living weapons that could one day become uncontrollable. What if someone suddenly gained the ability to snap his fingers and destroy anything in the universe or create a black hole anywhere? At that time, everyone lived in constant fear. There were no heroes or villains. Those words could only be found in comic books. How many comic books did he read with his brother? Perhaps too many, but it inspired him, damaged his relationship with his brothers, and destroyed his life. He occasionally questions what kind of greater power chose to give humanity power when it was already tainted, but he doesn't hold this higher power responsible because he also gained power. The limitless ability to direct and influence all other powers in the cosmos. When he found his quirk, he was extremely young, roughly 6 years old. It's not like he could have encountered someone with a quirk by simply going down the street. At the time, barely 5% of people had one. He regrets occasionally that he was unable to return some of them, not because he never intended to, but because they were all too valuable. This feeling is similar to a drug when he accepts a quirk and makes it his own. He was also aware that he had to use this ability for the benefit of society, even if it meant turning into a villain. The rise of Quirk had caused a period of social collapse, but he knew he could handle this upheaval. And he did. He never shares with others, though, how afraid he was and still is of failing to realize his vision, of being tainted by his own authority, of being betrayed, etc. While I wouldn't say I felt this way about this young man, it felt so familiar. Thus, I made the decision to offer him what I had never had. Suggestions? Precisely, it was 5 years ago. Izuku woke up in the dark, remembering what had happened and being relieved that he was still alive. He thought about Katsuki, the old structure, the black strings. He was startled by a voice behind him, saying, "Oh, you are awake at last. I thought it would take another hour until you wake up." He made a hasty attempt to stand up, but failed to realize that he was lying on a table of some sort, and he fell to the ground. "Please try to not hurt yourself. Where am I? What on earth is this place?" he asked, taking another look around him. I apologize for my mistake earlier. I assumed you were a thief of some sort. I had to check your head, so you can leave now." "Why, you did what?" Izuku was able to ask as he straightened out. A black skull and several plastic tubes were the first things Izuku observed when the speaker sighed and a man arose from the shadow. "I looked into your head. If you intentionally came here, then, to put it mildly, you wouldn't be as accepted as you are now." Izuku took a few steps back as the man approached him, saying, "You still seem a little disturbed." Izuku didn't see at first, but the man was huge, and now that he could see him clearly, something wasn't right. Whoever this person was, Izuku could only sense death coming from him. "Now tell me, tea? Coffee? Water, perhaps?" Izuku was caught off guard by the unexpected hospitality, which also somewhat lessened the man's commanding aura. "UATT. Great selection. But I don't know you'll like it. I don't have any sugar either." The man continued into the room, and Izuku saw that the once dark and empty space was actually fully furnished as a kitchen. He was still doubting his own sanity, by the way. "Have a sit. Anywhere, I don't give a damn." Izuku sat back where he had been resting a few seconds before, on a metal table that appeared to have been used recently. Very recently, trying to stifle the questions that were flowing in and just following the man's instructions. "Are you unsure about what to ask next? I know that people need explanations to keep their cool, and these days, any response is sufficient." Izuku heard a sharp whistle, most likely from a boiler, nonetheless. It would be impolite to not present myself to my new invitee. After dropping 2 cups close to a desk full of computer displays, he returned with them and sat in a large office chair. The kind where you might expect to see the wealthiest man in the universe or the villain with the claw and the cat from classic movies. "I can't tell you my name because you wouldn't comprehend it, and you shouldn't even know it for yourself." "Good," would have been the man's response to safety, and Izuku could tell by the little silence he made. "Now that I've addressed your query, may you tell me how you got here? I saw you sprinting like if you were dead." He wasn't lying when he claimed earlier that he just checked his thoughts to see if Izuku was an intruder or not. He did see Izuku running while he was peering into his head, but he couldn't watch 9 years of someone else's life. He had to keep it brief. In an attempt to be courteous, Izuku said, "Why you?" His host never responded to his questions, and he never asked any either. The best he could do was to respond, Someone was AF after me and I ran an H here. The man took one of the cups. Izuku would have thought this was amusing because his host couldn't possibly drink it while wearing the helmet he was wearing, but at the moment, the host was just too frightening to consider anything approaching amusement. Would you mind saying what you just said again? And just make sure I understand this time. The reason IW was running, according to me, was because my FR students were attempting to bully me. Izuku didn't have to appear unhappy in front of his host, even if he was aware of what they would do to him. Well, it's smart this time. However, nobody was pursuing you. I don't need a lie detector, I mean a Kier, to know that you aren't lying, so tell me. I believe is the right word to use, because I thought they were following me. The man took the other cup and gave it to Izuku, saying, "It should be cold enough now, enjoy it." Sorry, I probably shouldn't have pushed you to answer. The cup wasn't even tepid when Izuku reluctantly picked it up. WY. I mean. A-. Are you a bad guy? Isn't that clear? Huh. You truly are someone remarkable, because it took you so long to ask this question. I suppose you could say that I am one, yes. Tell me, what makes you say that? He got to his feet and crossed the room. Yes. Is it because my house is gloomy and frightening? Since I kidnapped you? No, you are not kidnapped. Rather, you are free to leave. Would you actually define what a villain is? With your own words, here and now. It was nearly premeditated. He found himself directly in front of Izuku. A villain is someone who does horrible things with his peculiarity. He was gazed at by the man. That is sufficiently near to the official definition. The issue with your comment is this. Did I do something incorrectly? He offered him a drink and, in a sense, took care of him. No, he didn't. Now, don't look at me like that. I'm not sure what kind of expression you're using at the moment, though. Izuku noticed a modest watch on his arm, but he could tell it was worth a lot of money. I'm half blind, to be honest, and, he said, 6 p.m. your folks must be concerned about you because I'm pretty sure you should be home by now. Yeah. Izuku picked up his backpack that had fallen by the table. The exit is directly behind you. Please accept my apologies for this misunderstanding. Izuku didn't give a damn about what the man was saying. He needed to leave immediately. Oh, and feel free to come here. Those bullies will never find you here, he said. But be careful in the staircase. Izuku came to a halt. Thank you, today. Did he return? Surprised, the doctor asked. He did. But this time, there was more to be afraid of than just an illusion. What sort of? He wasn't completely insane, was he? It makes sense, doesn't it, that he didn't want to be a public punching bag anymore? If we merely happened to cross paths, I wouldn't look for safety with you. No offense. No one was taken. Where had I gone? It was 5 years ago. Hopefully, Izuku recognized the corroded metal door, which was partially open when he hurried down the staircase. He didn't recognize the spot at first, but he didn't have much time to make a decision. You're on time, and I'm sorry you didn't knock before going in. Once more? Since Izuku was still gasping for air, All for One believed he would have another cup of tea. Sorry. I had no idea where I was supposed to go. They know the route to my flat too well. This old operating table isn't comfy, isn't it? I brought a chair this time, and I initially offered sanctuary. Tell me, if we plan to meet each other frequently, how about we introduce ourselves? Aye. Izuku seemed hesitant to respond. All right, let's get started. You don't have to tell me your family name if you don't want to, and you shouldn't divulge your name to strangers. Sensei is how many people call me, so just call me that. I'm Izuku. Izuku. I like the name, and so far, we've managed to have a great chat for about a minute, which is much better than yesterday. Izuku laughed a little, and he was pleasantly relieved of the nervousness he had been experiencing the day before. Why are you here? Are you by yourself? Huh. Interesting. I see. I'm recovering right now. Healing is a large term, though. To be honest, I'm retired, so before you go shrieking at the nearest police station, you're correct to brand me a villain yesterday, mostly. Are you retired? It doesn't seem like, typical? Hee. Lovely Izuku, you didn't believe that bad guys never die, do you? Even heroes must retire eventually. When you look at it this way, it's amusing because society actually needs villains in order for heroes to exist. However, villains don't need heroes, correct? Most importantly, intelligent. I can see why this plot uses you as the scapegoat. Scapegoat? Sensei placed a cup of tea in front of Izuku and said, don't tell me you don't know what it is. Here. It was Izuku's time to ask, what do you want to do with your life? Why? You're not going to enjoy it. Please, what could possibly enrage me when it's just a frivolous conversation between two adults? My goal is to become a hero. As he gazed at Izuku, All For One fell silent and motionless. All right. Which hero do you aspire to be? I don't inherently despise heroes just because I'm a villain. I'm not sure I understand. Why have I come here at all? Who knows? Because you are afraid, because you feel alone, and perhaps because you don't think I'm a bad person. You, answer please. I'm not sure, but I truly want to be a hero like All Might. Someone who saves lives and makes people smile. Under his mask, Izuku could swear he heard Sensei breathe, but it was most likely a sign of something more sinister. Excellent. And what sort of peculiarity do you possess? Quirk. Yes. After all, the hero's rights are determined by their power. Proceed now. Tell me what makes you unique. But I. Izuku clenched his fist around the teacup and gazed at his mirror, without responding. Is there a problem? No ha ha ha. It's just, actually, I don't have one. Izuku anticipated that his buddy, whom he knew, would make fun of him, and he did. Izuku clenched his teeth and said, that's a fantastic joke. But, Izuku dropped the cup on the floor and felt the eerie atmosphere surrounding Sensei again. I know when someone has a quirk or not, he said. No, the cup is not important. Would you mind showing me your quirk? Sensei was in front of Izuku and had a tight hold on his right arm before he could take any action. No, don't. Izuku strained to break free. He was stupid, so stupid, of course he couldn't trust a villain even if he was retired and blind. It will only take a moment. All For One had planned to utilize a quirk to make Izuku's one activate, but what he saw next made him feel both ecstatic and scared. Red sparks. Just like his. Another All For One. Plans. Hope. Thoughts rushing through his head. He briefly watched Izuku as he managed to escape before sprinting in the direction of the stairs. Wait. That was not what I meant to do. He grabbed Izuku with the black string oddity and roared. Give me a break. The teenager fought with all of his vigor and was shouted back. Your peculiarity. I am aware of what it does. I understand why you feigned a lack of eccentricities. Izuku stopped wriggling when he attracted his attention. Your quirk. You want to be a hero, so you can't use it. And since a hero cannot possess such strength, you were rushing because of your abilities rather than because of me. Would you like to know how I discovered your peculiarity? How did I recognize it? Why? Yes. My son. Only you and I possess the ability to steal peculiarities on this world. Who's up here? I'm calling a rehab girl, Izuku. You, No, I'm here. I don't see the necessity to call anyone. What took place? To be honest, I had a flashback, but it wasn't anything horrible. We need to just head out for lunch, don't we? Yes, we were invited to attend by Iida and the others. Really? Yes. Actually, Momo was the one who recommended this to, as they say, break the ice. That's fantastic. I assumed that everyone would ignore me, but, oh my goodness, let's go. As they approached from the lunch area, Ochako nodded and took the lead. She saw that Izuku was slowing down, saying, it's rather clear that you don't trust the other pupils. Is it truly that difficult? I wouldn't say it has to do with trust. I suppose I just have poor experiences. Since then, I haven't had any close friends. Izuku paused. Izuku? Have you ever thought about the consequences of not receiving a quirk? Imagine that you are excited and hopeful about the power the universe has given you as you go to see the doctor, and suddenly, nothing. Izuku Ochako never thought about it, and she had nothing to be afraid of because both of her parents had a quirk, and she had never encountered someone without a quirk until Izuku. It seemed as though there were no such individuals when she was younger. No, I didn't think of this. Neither am I. I spend a lot of time trying to get anything in my body to work, sometimes for reasons other than my intense desire to be a hero. It's like being quirkless. People make fun of your own suffering, so it's like being a social outcast. Izuku looked down, and his voice sounded uncertain toward the end. Ochako was unsure on what to do in this circumstance. She couldn't disappoint Izuku and... However, hey, everything is different now, isn't it? I'll be making lots of buddies. Izuku was now smiling as if the last 3 minutes never happened. Let's go now. We don't want to waste any more lunchtime, do we? Yes, indeed. Ochako threw a punch into the air to show her that he was excited. Izuku was terrified like never before, not at all excited. It was 5 years ago. Everything. For one. That's how why. What is it called? After a few minutes of explaining his power, Izuku asked, now gazing into yet another cup of tea. Yes, I came up with this name for a purpose. Sensei had put everything on hold so that, if necessary, he could spend the next 7 hours speaking with Izuku. How did you find out? At the age of 4, I unintentionally took my friend's quirk, and I was afraid at the time. He has an exploding quirk, so you can see how it ended. You returned his quirk, but you don't have it? No, I guess I only took it briefly, without thinking or noticing. What was the number of times you used all for one? 2 times. Izuku trembled as he said, I used it on my mother the second time. I caused her a great deal of pain. I suppose you totally ignored her quirk this time, but you hurried through it, so it must have been tiring for you as well. Additionally, he had used his power numerous times, not always to steal a quirk, sometimes to torture, and other times to assist. All for One was impressed. But every time he took a quirk, he felt compelled to return some of it, but he was unable to do so because he would use his power more effectively than anyone else. Despite this, Izuku, All for One, assumed that the boy was about 10 years old, and he never attempted to take a quirk in all these years. He must have been lying since anyone with that much power would want more, but he wasn't. Izuku had been one of the most honest people he had met up to this point. Why? If it was so easy for you to get a quirk, why are you still quirkless now? Sensei asked, his tone shifting from neutral to questioning. You want to be a hero, don't you? Why yes, but anything you desire might be yours. All for One reclined back in his chair and turned toward his wall of screens, as though he could see what they were showing. He looked pitiful, especially in front of youngsters. This world could be yours, I don't understand. It wouldn't be appropriate. He actually laughed at that, didn't you think? What's right, he. Isn't it exhausting to occasionally be quirkless? I am yes. So why? Do you not want those who don't deserve power to lose it? Yes, but what? Let me know. Now it was anger who spoke through All for One, it was just impossible. The greed for power was natural for every human being and no one could resist it. Why do you choose to be weak? All for One picked up his chair off the floor and tossed it somewhere else in the room. This was a mistake, and in addition to hurting himself by using a quirk in his state, he also scared Izuku. He was going to apologize, but he was unable to stand up any longer. It was pitiful that he only used it for a brief moment before he was exhausted. A hand materialized in front of him as he was exerting all of his last effort to keep from collapsing. Izuku said, because I don't want to turn into a bad person. After he hesitated, he took Izuku's hand and the young guy assisted him in resettling himself in a different chair. I do not wish to resemble them. If being powerful turns you into a monster, then. I don't want to, then. What if monsters are necessary in this world? As that? Lunch rush? Whoa, that's really awesome. The cook himself is a hero. As she and Izuku reached the lunch area, Ochako grinned. They didn't even have to wait because the aforementioned hero was producing at least 5 plates every second. Ochako picked up a bell of rice with green jelly cubes, and Izuku selected a purple soup. Although it didn't seem appetizing, it was ultimately prepared by a professional hero with a unique talent. Izuku was just as shocked as Ochako, but he was thinking about if this hero could be regarded as a pro because most people simply look at the outcomes and are unaware of his peculiarities. In actuality, it appears to be quite straightforward. Lunch rush can transform any type of surroundings into food. If only this kind of ability could save those who are starving outside. Are they visible to you? Izuku asked. According to their statement, they will be seated close to the windows. Right here. When Ochako pointed to a big table, Izuku saw Tenya, Momo, Denki, Tsuyu, and he was momentarily perplexed to see a uniform flying, but he soon realized it was Toru. Hi everyone, I called Ochako. Oh, did something happen while you were traveling? Momo offered Izuku and Ochako a seat, explaining, we were afraid you might not come. Izuku apologized, saying, sorry, I spaced out and I ended up delaying us. Oh, does it occur frequently? She went forward cautiously. All right. Izuku glanced at Momo's plate, and a genuine block of iron stood in the center. Is that? Izuku tried to prevent that, but occasionally I wind up muttering in front of everyone or losing my train of thought, like I did with Ochako. Actually no, it's not lol, she said, slicing through the iron cube with a knife as though it were a block of butter. To be honest, I have no idea what it is, but it tastes like. I guess curry and tomato. Tenya clarified, mine is intended to be some sort of ice cream, but it's really hot. It tastes like something like jalapeno peppers. He spoke in a tone of surrender, saying, I tried to put water over it, but it's useless. They should really put some description about the food. I'm not even sure I want to eat my soup now. Lunch rush. Izuku made it. Komon. Try it out. Hurrying to lunch. Curious, Denki asked, who is that? Izuku replied, he's our cook. Most people don't know him because he's more of a support than a field hero. I don't mean to offend, but he is incredibly helpful. Whoa, that's fantastic. I wonder if the entire staff is made up of professionals, Toru retorted. I've been informed that we will be staying at number 13's training facility this year. I adore her, Ochako added. It makes sense, Ribbit. Although your peculiarities are different, they're helpful for support and, well, do they share a common theme? Similar to gravity and space? Additionally, Ribbit, your outfit resembles an early iteration of hers. Yes, precisely. Sue, which is your favorite? Ochako asked. At the moment, I have none. Favorite, even if I really enjoy Recovery Girl, she said, placing a finger to her mouth while maintaining a blank expression. Although Izuku never observed a front with expressions, he did observe that she was difficult to read, perhaps because she was emotionally strong. Mine would be my big brother. Being a hero is some kind of legacy in the family and I'm really looking up to be as good as him, replied Tenya. After responding that All Might was their favorite hero, the other kids began to look at Izuku, which obviously indicated that they were waiting for a response. If it weren't for Suyu's directness, Izuku initially attempted to dismiss them. How about you, Midoriya? Me. Oh, that's right. Well. It was 5 years ago. Izuku continued to visit every day after school, even on the weekends, unless he had another commitment, as All for One had anticipated. It wasn't a terrible thing. He truly loved every moment spent with the young man. He had a very sharp intellect, and All for One postponed all of his appointments with Tsubasa in order to spend more time alone with Izuku. He mumbled, hello, as he stepped into the basement. Good afternoon, Izuku. I purchased some new tea varieties, he meant, asked my personal taxi to steal. Deederi is the name of this one. Has no significance, but it must smell like mint. Sensei. I'd rather not bother you, but my hands they. All for One grasped one of Izuku's hands, interrupting the child. The small child was shy, but there was a great difference between shy and afraid. Izuku was quite worried, and All for One initially guessed it when Izuku entered. He had already experienced similar circumstance. Isn't it painful? As Sensei noticed the red sparks around Izuku's hands, he surmised, and you can't control it either. I can't continue attending classes in this manner. People are already beginning to notice that I'm acting strangely, and I can hardly control it. Enjoy any muscle. The quirk had to be used to survive since it was starving, but Izuku would not enjoy this response. Since when? 2 years. 2 years have passed. He had to act immediately because the pain must be excruciating. Hey, it happened to me too, okay? Though there is something you must do, you will be alright. I must steal a quirk, am I correct? I know how quirks operate, so I verified this fact on my trip, even though I had theorized it beforehand. Not wanting to take any eccentricity, I'm not sure how I'm going to accomplish this. This child's stubbornness is to blame. Well, everyone will have to try. Use minds. You can't take them, but I'm willing to share some with you until All for One stops reacting this way. You really? All for One was somewhat avaricious when it came to quirks, but he was also discussing his current physical condition. In addition, Izuku never attempted to steal a quirk willingly. You don't know how hard it is for me. It looks simple, but it's going to hurt me as much as you. Hold your horses, but take my hand. I'll begin. All right. We don't want any complications. However, All for One was aware that there would be issues. Normally, Izuku could feel the eccentricities around him, and he always puzzled why he couldn't feel the same around All for One. However, when their hands connected, Izuku lost his footing, indicating that something was seriously wrong with Sensei. Now that he understood why, he most likely always sensed his presence. Izuku anticipated the emptiness and the seemingly endless number of peculiarities that were simultaneously pouring through him in a chaotic yet serene manner when Sensei grabbed his hand. Izuku put his palm to his mouth. He would likely react similarly if he were looking at a heap of corpses. All for One tossed the phrase, "I hope you can hold back," out. Izuku was able to regain his breath after a minute. Why, you anticipated this response, correct? I did, but I was curious about how emotionally resilient you were, so I did. I'm impressed, I must say. Let's try to tame your dissident Quirk, so grasp my hand once more. Although he is not quite a hero, he was and continues to be a significant character. Without him, I wouldn't be here, so I suppose he helped me a lot and showed me what sort of hero I want to be. Who the hell is he? Maybe a police officer, Ochako was asked. No, he is a certain. Well, teacher? Of all things. As if he were going to claim that the man who given him the drive and the abilities to be a hero was a previous criminal genius, he said. Let's keep it that way. Some kind of secret teacher, that sounds great Midoriya, ribbit. Izuku smiled at the frog pupil awkwardly. Warning, level 3 security breach. Nothing occurred for a few seconds, but suddenly a bell rang, and the students in the lunchroom began to worry. What is this? As she attempted to get out of the way of the pupils fleeing, Ochako asked. A breakdown in security? Tenya pondered. We have to evacuate. That can't be possible. No villain is stupid enough to attack UA. But I guess we'll have to figure something else out. Look, hold on. The journalists were pushed back toward the exit while Suyu showed them the outside of the lunch area, where they could see the school's entrance from their table. How were they able to enter? Izuku wondered. So there's no need to evacuate. We must inform everyone. Izuku turned to face the flow once more. 4 years prior, you exchanged peculiarities? Yes, occasionally, or I gave them. I never offered a quirk out of charity, but every time it was a well-considered choice. Decided by calculation? You mean, the government attempted to get control of this new power when Quirk initially emerged. I don't have to explain how everyone responded, particularly the oddball. Did the government? Even though Izuku couldn't see it, he knew that Sensei was only attempting to numb the agony as All for One gazed at the ceiling and said, no, they never discovered me, at least not yet, not even when. Anyway, some were looking for power, some for protection, direction. I gave them everything they requested, and all I asked for in return was their trust. But you made use of them back then, Izuku smiled. What do you think I would do if one of them declined the option I gave them? For some strange reason, you might assume I'll do anything as heinous as killing them or torturing their family, but you know, many people rejected. Perhaps they were braver or smarter than the other one. Indeed, let this serve as your lesson for the day. Izuku paid close attention to what Sensei had to say. A leader must show up in a dire circumstance. Verify that you are this leader. How? Offer them hope, or force them to believe that you are their only hope. Throw me. Izuku muttered. That's what Ochako heard. Now, Ochako, tell me about your peculiarity. Izuku stretched out to Ochako, who instantly used her magic on him. Izuku leapt above the student body and flew till he reached the exit door, which was totally blocked. Silence. Izuku shouted as loudly as he could manage. He got the pupils to pay attention by saying, don't you see it's only journalists? Are all of you insane for reacting like this? The majority of them gazed downward or in a different direction. In the first place, act like a hero because you are meant to be one. The crowd thinned down after a minute, and Izuku thought Ochako was letting him go. He then took a full minute to regain his breath and process what had just transpired. Midoriya. The first person to reach him was Tenya, who said, you were amazing. I'm grateful, but I will never again do it. Izuku. Ochako looked exhausted when she arrived. Izuku didn't know that using her quirk for such a small amount of time would drain her so much. Are you okay? I was really afraid. However, that was really awesome. I'm all right, and comparatively pleased that it was successful. I'm hoping you'll try again. That is the proper behavior for a real hero, Tenya said. I'm so glad to have you in our class and to have you as our class representative. Izuku scratched the back of his head and grinned, but he still had work to do. I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back, he said. But your lunch? Ochako was concerned. I'll take it later, thank you. Sorry for this lunch, it was really messed up. Don't worry about it. We were aware that journalists could be so obstinate that they would break into a highly secured building. Momo ironized. Izuku actually didn't use the restroom at all. Instead, he was making his way to the school's entrance, where a number of obnoxious reporters and photographers were waiting for them. The aforementioned journalist had left when he arrived, and although Izuku saw some broken cameras on the ground, the flow of terrified students was essentially unchanged. Nezu and Aizawa were also present, and they were inspecting the door. Quirk being used illegally? Asked the director. When Izuku heard the word, conventional, he clenched his teeth and said, most likely, nothing, conventional, can do so much clean damage. What exactly was the issue with Quirkless that Aizawa was having? Nezu's head turned to face Izuku as his ears twitched. saying, "Then it's a proclamation of, awe. Well, the time couldn't be more ideal." "Hello, Izuku," Nezu said. "Director," was Izuku's response. "You ought to be in class, right?" Aizawa asked in a monotone, slightly irate tone. I was curious as to how the journalists gained access to the UA for the other pupils. "Aizawa, you should be in class too. Don't be so hard on him. At least I have a reason to be here. In either case, you have some aptitude for studying oddities, don't you, Izuku?" Pointed the door in all directions and asked the director. "Yeah. You'd like me to. I want you to have a look. After all, a second examination can always be helpful." Sure." Izuku murmured as he approached the door, and Aizawa shifted from his position. The gate appeared to have been transformed into a pile of little rocks at first glance. There couldn't have been an explosion because the rocks would have been dispersed. Izuku picked up one of the boulders, which wasn't particularly hot. "That's strange." The door abruptly crashed down like a card castle out of nowhere. Izuku came to the conclusion that it was dismembered, purely and simply cut in every direction. "Would you mind arguing with us further?" Aizawa asked. Izuku handed Aizawa a piece of the door and said, "First, there was no explosion, or else we would have heard it and there wouldn't be a pile of metal rocks where the door once stood. Then, moreover, I'm sure the journalists would have noticed. It's completely cold. If someone tried to cut through it with a saw or a laser, it would still be hot. No, it was carried out by a device that could covertly destroy even the enormous gate of the United Arab Emirates." As usual, Aizawa was just staring, and Nezu had stopped smiling. "Was that beneficial?" "More than enough, Izuku. You can go back to class, and tell the others to get ready. We're going out of the school facility," said Aizawa. "Why, yes." Izuku hurried back to the teacher's office. "Deconsist. Dismembering. What sort of peculiarity is that?" Confused, Aizawa asked. "From the verity, he is extremely close. I believe we are not finished yet, so please call back midnight and recovery." All Might joined them after they left a little while ago due to a hostage issue or something in the city. "He won't be there this afternoon, so perhaps 13 will manage the students by herself," Aizawa groaned. Everyone in the classroom was quiet when Izuku walked in. Some were chatting among themselves about the breach, while others were busy with whatever was on their desk. "Izuku, what took place?" asked Momo. "Illegal use of Quirk, but the teachers are already dealing with this." Izuku feigned a grin. "Also, Aizawa told us to get ready. We are leaving soon. Apparently we are going outside of the school." "Did he explain why?" "I suppose he will elaborate later." Izuku sat back at his computer. He should have eaten lunch because he was quite hungry after all of these stressful occurrences, but who knew whether it would be after some secret test. It was 3 years ago. "What is this place, Sensei?" "It was once a sweets store. Was shut down because they were unable to compete." "Competition? I mean, it occurs, correct? Are you aware of the reasons behind the rules governing the use of quirks? To stop individuals from spreading mayhem and harming others. You know, when quirks developed, some people used them for their jobs. Imagine being able to make ice cream by purifying the air around you. That's close enough in a manner, but also to prevent this kind of thing from happening. That is an exotic quirk, even if I have to concede it." "Did they manage to get caught?" "No, they didn't. In fact, they decided not to use theirs in order to stay up to date. And they lost as a result of not giving it their all to win." "That's not just, Izuku. What's fair in life?" "I apologize for my slip. What I'm trying to say is that you will eventually find yourself in a situation where you lack the strength to save yourself. Make a vow to me that you won't do anything foolish if it occurs." "I promise, Izuku." Asui. "Call me Sue, please." "Oh, yeah, right." Izuku fell back asleep, but maybe he understood most of what Aizawa had to say. This afternoon, they would practice rescue techniques, and at least no one would try to beat him up. "I was curious as to where you learned all of the movements you displayed during the fighting training. I have never seen a hero do that. Is it your own manner, or was it taught to you?" "Oh, yes, exactly. I would say that I adjusted some of the essential elements that someone supplied me. However, we just resumed our training." "Gosh, that is really macho," beamed Eijiro. "I wish I could employ such moves." With his quirk activated around his arms, he said, "I can't stop picturing how I would look if I could combine my quirk with your style. I guess you can just run into most fights without worrying about the danger because your quirk is so wonderful for infighting." Izuku was added. "I can. Damn it. Similar to Red Riot. I suppose we actually adopted many of the traits of our idols. Well, mostly. Ochako was mentioned. Regarding personality, Izuku, are you aware of which hero influenced Bakugo to shape him in that way? Ribbit. What? I from the back of the bus, Denki acknowledged. Yeah, Bakugo and Todoroki both have incredible peculiarities, and they definitely fit their personalities, no offense people. None taken. Shoto mumbled. Izuku laughed as Katsuki raised an eyebrow since he was only engaged in the topic because people were discussing his peculiarity. I mean, what type of hero inspired Bakugo to always look angry? Katsuki became agitated when Tsuyu was teased, saying, I never heard of any that would match his personality, so I guess this one isn't very popular. He sprang to his feet and shook his fist at Tsuyu, saying, I want to kick your ass, so say that again. The youngsters on the bus only laughed at that. It was hilarious. Now that the roles had been switched, Izuku could relish every second of his time at UA. Momo, seated next to Ochako, said, This is such a disgusting conversation. Yes, but it's kind of enjoyable, isn't it? She made a proposal. Ochako had forgotten her helmet, but Izuku saw that she was now wearing gloves. Is that something new? Pointing to her hands, he questioned. Oh, indeed. When I was practicing to utilize my quirk on myself, I realized that I should practice my movements more than trying to hold for a longer amount of time. And I have to admit that this concept came from your gloves. However, they aren't designed for protection or climbing, are they? They appear so. Okay, soft? Yeah, kinda. Someone gave them to me 4 years ago, and since I keep bringing them with me, they may look soft, but trust me, they're as hard as diamond, Izuku said, removing his left glove and passing it to Ochako. Is that the same individual who provided you with those gloves and trained you? Tsuyu inquired. Ribbit, and Ochako handed her the glove. Yes, they did a lot more for me. That was 4 years ago. Even though winter hasn't arrived yet, I wanted to send you a tiny gift because I happened to find this. Normally, All For One would not discuss his age, but he pulled a small package out of a cupboard and placed it on the operating table. For keeping company to an old man like me, ha ha ha. Izuku never made an effort to inquire either. Sensei appeared to be in his 30s or 40s, but even if he were acting elderly, or at least referred to himself as such, the rest of his physique felt off. Though you didn't have to, thank you, Sensei B. I could never have done what you did for me. Please stop apologizing and open it. How on earth are you able to be so overly courteous? The tiny package Izuku unwrapped revealed a pair of green and black gloves. That's... I didn't know how to when All For One originally came out. Control it. In fact, I was able to frighten myself a couple of times in the street when someone approached me too closely. To be honest, they're useless, yet I felt secure. I guess it could be useful to you. Would you donate your own gloves to me? Look at the size of my hands. Not only do I no longer need them, but I can't even use them anymore. Who would have guessed that I could use such a pair of claws to crush someone's head? All right, it appears that we are Hold on, why did we pause before a huge dome? As he exited the bus, Kirishima wondered, that's gigantic, it's like what? 700 meters high. Please do not waste any more time, we have too much to do in one afternoon, follow me, instructed Aizawa. Hello, everybody, I had been anticipating your arrival. A distorted voice that belonged to someone dressed as an astronaut was heard. No way. It's the space hero 13, exclaimed Ochako. 13 was undoubtedly the best person to teach the class about rescuing because Izuku knew a little bit about this professional, who had saved many lives all over the world with their tremendous quirk. The class was taken inside the dome without any additional explanation. Some students commented that it resembled an entertainment park, and in a way, it did, but the real objective of the location was to replicate natural disasters. 13 called this location the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, or USJ for short. Most students thought this was anachronistic, which may be problematic because USJ was already claimed for Universal Studio Japan. Hey, shouldn't everyone be present as well? Oh no. I suppose he was able to secure another interview to avoid having to deal with his work. As he walked alongside 13, Aizawa accompanied him. Actually no, it's something else. Izuku couldn't hear what they were saying, but he saw that 13 was showing Aizawa 3 with her fingers. But for what? 3 for class, villains, distance, or hours. All Might worked as a pro in addition to his job at UA, but he wasn't instructing another class. Anyway, I want to mention a few things before we begin. Or, in fact, 2. 3. Stat 3D13, that is. We understand. Replied to the class. As everyone is aware, our society has stringent laws about quirks, and each person has a file stating whether or not their quirk poses a risk. For instance, My quirk is named Black Hole. I don't need to describe how it operates. However, I could definitely use it to cause mayhem and... Izuku began to feel strange while 13 was explaining things. He didn't need to be afraid at the moment, so why would he? His file had stated that he was quirkless since he was 4, and that would not change for a while. All okay. Now that this is over, Aizawa was cut off by an odd electric noise. The dome's illumination changed, and the fountain in the middle of the plaza was also having issues, with the water flow repeatedly ceasing. Well. When Aizawa turned around, something dark formed in the center of the plaza. Was it smoke? No, something was emanating from it. Stay together and don't move, she said. Her name was 13. He gave the class an order. What? I believed we were saving lives, and Eijiro moved forward, but Aizawa shoved him back right away. I said, "Don't move. Those individuals are real villains." Was finished by Izuku. That was 4 years ago. You see, my dear Izuku, you can't actually win or lose a game of chess. It just doesn't add up to our reality. Sensei wasn't responding to, am I? So Izuku looked at the board for a minute and said, but I'm winning right now. You are indeed winning, but consider this. Do you really think your soldiers would sacrifice themselves so another one can kill his assailant? Let's play the game this way, right? Now you can't move any pieces on a case where they would get killed during the next turn. Sure. Izuku didn't think this new rule would make much of a difference, but he and Sensei were blocked after just 2 minutes. When he finally said, it's a draw, All for One laughed and crossed his arms before reclined in his chair. As I said, you can't win such a game, however it still doesn't add up to reality. Your soldiers do not have emotions, convictions, thing that you can exploit in order to push them to act. This doesn't sound really heroic. Remember when I told you about emerging as a leader? Well, that's how it works. Any living being will always act for his own interests, and there is no greater interest than life. You are telling me this as if I didn't care about other people's lives. That's the problem. You are putting the interests of others before yours. One day this will get you killed. You can't say that. Sensei abruptly got to his feet and tore apart the 2 cables that were attached to his mask at the time. All for One was interrupted by Izuku's startled and terrified expression. I can, because I know how this world works, and I'm trying to make you see through. The former villain sat back slowly in his chair and said, I had a brother, you know. And he then stopped, saying, never mind. You should just go home now, it's getting late. Sensei, just go home. I have made enough mistakes for today. Izuku picked up his school bag as Sensei stopped moving. Izuku had observed that All for One disliked it when he disagreed or questioned his lessons, but he also seemed to enjoy some opposition. Neither he nor Izuku were particularly upset with him in the end. Now, villains. Izuku never imagined that he would have to deal with this kind of situation at UA, but it had to happen eventually. Even less in the initial weeks. Izuku asked 13, how did they get here? Shouldn't there be some kind of alarm? As the villains were spreading themselves throughout the USJ, the expert who was still observing the plaza with Aizawa responded, there is no electricity, one of them must be using their quirk to do that. Denki, try to use your quirk and contact the school. Everyone go back to the bus now, instructed Aizawa. Izuku was aware that this would not go well in one way or another. There is no way you can just go against them on your own. I know it's your job, but that's still suicide at this point. Aizawa put on his goggles and sprinted toward the plaza, saying, I know. But if I do not act now, everyone will suffer. Now just go. Although everyone knew how it might or would end, the students were in disbelief as they witnessed their teacher running straight into the villains. He was strong, really strong. Anyone would be shocked to see 13, but Izuku knew what he had to do next. You heard him. Let's get out of here quick. We have to call the teachers. Aizawa said that they had to act immediately. 13 gazed at Izuku. She needed to speak, but she was unable to leave Aizawa because the students came first. As he ran back the other direction, Izuku commanded, quick, follow me. Denki, do you have anything? While he was charging his phone, it abruptly shut off, but if we get far enough I might, he said, pointing to his phone. Nothing, I'm completely lost right now. As they ran, the mist that had formed on the plaza appeared between them and the exit. It was difficult to explain, but a person with a teleportation quirk was blocking their path to the exit. This is how they entered, and it's also how the villain arrived so fast. It said, I'm sorry, but I can't let you go just yet. Before long, the mist had eyes and armor parts. A quirk that allowed this villain to completely alter his body, or at least a mutation quirk. Suddenly, 13 appeared between the students and the mist villain, pointing her fingers at it. She paused before attacking because she wasn't sure whether the villain was afraid of her quirk. She needed to take action right away because she had no idea what the villain would do to the students if he could transport anything through his body. Everyone take cove. Before 13 even said anything, the majority of the students had already responded, but one did not. Die. Katsuki sprang into the air, aiming for the mist man while launching himself with his grenade gauntlet. Katsuki was crazy. If he used his gauntlet here, he might harm the students and 13. Izuku felt his legs giving way. Once more, he acted without thinking. Since he was in the way of 13 using her quirk and it provided him with an ideal opportunity to attack the class, the villain, pathetic, wasted his body and absorbed Katsuki in the process. 13 would not risk using her quirk because she was unsure if Katsuki was still in the mist in some way. Along with the other students, Izuku ducked, expecting to be hurt. A few students screamed briefly, but then the class fell silent, and when Izuku looked up, over half of the students had left. The only people remaining were Hanta, Tenya, Ochako, Kyoka, and 13. The mist villain, who was standing between them and the exit, laughed and said, "I must thank this brat, he really helped me here, without him I'm not sure I would have been able to stick to our plan." Kyoka exclaimed, "What have you done to our friends?" Fear turned to anger, which in turn to rage, but after witnessing everyone vanish in 10 seconds, Kyoka and the others could only feel helpless. "I sent them away, our associates are going to take care of them, do not worry, hopefully their death will come quickly." Even Eijiro, who had been prepared to follow Katsuki, felt incapable of putting up a fight at this point. 13 instantly triggered her quirk. The villain was being sucked, but he failed to appear to indicate whether or not he was being impacted. "Your quirk is amazing, however, just like the other kid you aren't very smart." "What are you?" It was awful. The villain opened a portal directly behind the expert, and in a split second, half of 13's outfit was gone, sucked by their own quirk. They whispered, "It's the worst kind of V villain," as they hit the floor. "Now, you are all going to stay here until our target arrives." "Cybele, we can't help 13 right now. If we try to approach her the villain will attack us. He is slow so as long as we keep some distance we are safe," Izuku said, making sure the villain wouldn't hear too much of what he had to say. "Where are the others?" Hanta interrogated. "He sent them somewhere else inside the USJ. I don't think he was lying about that part. If he wanted to kill us right now he would have done that during his first attack. This villain wasn't here for us, or at least not yet, they have a target." The antagonist threw a fit and said to Izuku, "We do. Now tell me, you look like the leader here, do you mind telling me where is All Might?" Izuku had to be extremely cautious about what he said because if this villain didn't intend to kill them now, he certainly had the ability to do so. "All Might? You are here for All Might? Is he your target?" "Yes. Now how about you answer my question?" Izuku had to divert the villain for as long as he could after noticing Tenya was backing away. Izuku merely replied, "He isn't coming," hoping the villain would look perplexed or explain as well. "No, you are lying. The schedule we stole clearly said that All Might would be present." "The schedule? Then this morning no you are not the one who destroyed the door, but you are definitely working with them. That was your plan, right? To steal our schedule and attack All Might when he would be far away from UA." Tenya had traveled far enough for the antagonist to not recognize him. That's the perfect occasion, All Might and his students in a secluded area without any means to call the other heroes, a calculated attack. "You figured out all of this by yourself. I'm impressed but I want answers now, give me the reason of his absence." "Simple, he is a hero. B had some work outside and he couldn't be present. I guess in a way you miscalculated." The mist man stretched his body toward Izuku and the others, saying, "You little." Izuku was correct. He was moving too slowly to possibly catch up to them before they fled. Izuku shouted to his friend, "Tenya now. Go find the teachers," and he used his quirk to fly in the direction of the exit. "No." The mist man attempted to turn around, but he was already occupied with Izuku and the other pupils. He could not have opened a gate in front of Tenya because the student was too quick. Izuku continued, "I suppose that's another miscalculation." Instead of answering, the mist man paused to gaze at Izuku before vanishing. Where did he go?" Ochako inquired. "Hopefully he is announcing to whoever is the leader that someone managed to escape," replied Eijiro. When Hanta ran to check on 13, the others approached and said, "Gosh, there is no blood but I'm not sure we can do anything to help." 13's body was missing, and her costume was too small. It went better than Izuku had anticipated, but there is always another issue to deal with. "Let's try to take her to a safe place. We have to find the others and inform Aizawa that Tenya managed to escape." He thought about how horrible it could have been and who might have been at her house as he stood over 13's unconscious body. Before a huge ice formation formed around the earthquake section, Honda argued, they could be anywhere. What if he simply sent them away from the USJ? He dispersed us to handicap the heroes. We aren't potential targets, but if we die then. Honda, can you try to use your quirk and close up 13 costume? Honda gestured for Eijiro to assist him in holding 13 in place while he used his quirk, saying, yes, it's clean enough. It won't make things worse, at least I hope so. Good. Ochako, try to locate everyone and tell them to meet us here. Avoid the mist villain at all cost. We don't want to end up dispersed again. Or worse. I can use my quirk to keep this area safe. If anyone get close I will hear them, and well, I'm not sure, but I might be able to tell whether or not it's a villain, said Kyoka. All right, then. Izuku turned to face the plaza, where he saw that Eraserhead had defeated nearly every villain, leaving only 9 standing. The mist villain was standing next to a mastodon. This thing hardly resembled a mutation, and he couldn't call it human because his brain was visible and the top of his head was missing. The fact that they merely weighed like good pieces on a chessboard, without even attempting to assist another villain in their battle against Aizawa, was even more unsettling. Izuku was trying to organize things when everyone heard a crashing sound. When they turned to face the plaza, the black creature had moved and was now holding Aizawa's head against the ground. If we try to interact with Aizawa, we would just handicap him. We have to find the others right in, says Izuku. Izuku noticed the red lights from Aizawa's quirk, but Eraserhead appeared to be completely incapacitated. Perhaps this was due to a mutation? We have to do something, Ochako replied. We can't just let him get killed. This thing is really strong, Ochako, and none of us can deal any damage in battle because of it. In addition, we would be outnumbered even if we tried anything right now. So we're simply going to let him pass away? Let him perish? That was 4 years ago. It's time we talk about my brother. Ah, yes, you mentioned him when. Izuku paused, not intending to bring up their brief exchange from a few weeks prior. In fact, it's about something I regret, and I think this story might help you later. You should take a seat, it might take a long time. That's okay. I told my mother that I would be visiting a friend, though she didn't look reassured. Izuku heard a click as Sensei settled into his large seat and put his hands to his mask. She must really love you then, haha. He glanced at Sensei right away, but he was sitting in the dark and couldn't see his face. Izuku could see what appeared to be veins all over his head, though. But you're not allowed to remove it. It was a long time ago. That seems obvious, but. Sensei paused. You know I'm way older than I look, right? No, but my doctor isn't here to say anything, and I'm getting tired of carrying this thing around. All for One dropped the mask at his feet. Izuku muttered, why, you never really told me, but I guess that yes. All right, so I was trading quirks at the time. The process wasn't always easy, and at times it was extremely risky. My brother, on the other hand, didn't agree with my tactics and believed that I was abusing my position of authority. He was somewhat correct, but I had so much power that I could do anything and finally mold this society the way I desired. You couldn't accept that he wasn't on your side. Sensei gradually stopped grinning, saying, then quirks came into our life. I was gifted with unlimited power while my brother had nothing. It was confusing. We used to do everything together, read comics, and sometimes borrow them for a undetermined amount of time, ha ha ha. He had no peculiarities. Yes, I don't know if that's what pushed me to 2. The line, to know, please tell me you didn't, was also guessed by Izuku. For a long time, I couldn't figure out why he was so opposed to my plans. I forced a quirk on him. He didn't even try to listen when I tried to explain how I wanted to change the world. My brother was the best person to show me how unfair this society is, but he was quirkless. I gave him the opportunity to change it with me, but he declined. You forced a quirk into him. You did that because you thought that maybe he might change his mind. Sensei rubbed his face and said, it was an error. He attempted to kill me. But he didn't succeed, right? You are still alive, after all. Did he really do that to you? That's more complicated than you think, but yes, we ended up fighting, more than once, and each time I won. All for One touched his forehead. I'm telling you this story because you look a lot like him, and no, I'm not talking about your physical appearance, in fact you look a lot like me. Are you attempting to convince me of your point? Yes, because each time we disagree on something it feels like a stab in my heart. Each time I can see my brother in front of me. I don't want to make the same mistakes, but I can't let you follow the same path than my brother either. Izuku couldn't feel manipulated or influenced at this moment because All for One had done so much for him, and Sensei had never attempted to harm him or make him a villain. Instead, he merely wished to assist him in becoming a decent person who could act morally. One day I'm sure you will become the strongest person on this planet, someone capable of turning his dreams into reality no matter how hard it is as long as you believe in yourself. See, could you elaborate on your brother for me? Maybe another time, I think it's enough for today, said All for One, tossing his mask back over his head. Hanta, I need some tape. Yes, but why exactly? I'm going to do something stupid and save Aizawa, Izuku said with a smile as he turned around. What? They all shouted at once, and Izuku just grinned more in return. You just stated that attacking them at this time would be foolish, Kyoka argued while continuing to scan their surroundings for any movement. I noticed one important thing. They do not know about our quirks. Look, Izuku raised his hand towards the ice structure. Shoto was sent to an open area, the perfect place to use his ice. If they knew what type of quirk he had, they would have sent him somewhere else, like the fake volcano zone. At least half of his quirk would have been neutralized, I think. Izuku, just let us know what you plan to do. We cannot abandon you to the bad guys. What if they catch you? Ochako begged. I'm going to bluff, actually meant that Izuku was going to blindfold himself and enter a no man's land. This is becoming monotonous. Where in the world is All Might? A man with an odd hand evering his face asked Aizawa. Above him, the creature raised the pressure once more, saying, I won't, without getting any orders. Kurogiri, your report. Everything is going as planned. The students are disorganized and our units are taking care of them, but... However, under his hand mask, Tamura Shigaraki gave Kurogiri a menacing look. One of them escaped, and the leader maintained his composure. At least now All Might has a reason to come here, and even if he does, it's already late. Kurogiri did not fear Tamura as much because he was accustomed to such behavior, but he still wanted to avoid his leader's outburst. Anyway, I guess we can always tarnish his reputation. How about we kill a student or TW? Kurogiri said. If you weren't so useful, I would turn you into a pile of dust right now. From the corner of Kurogiri's eye, he saw the black and green color shifting, signaling that something was coming. Back at the entrance, Izuku Midoriya didn't recognize the child from Sensei's description, but once he emerged as the leader, it was clear. However, he now faced another issue. The child was willingly endangering himself. Was he as foolish as the other one? No, Izuku must have had a plan. Kurogiri knew what was going to happen, and Tamura smiled. Well, I guess you are the first one. Nom. Izuku said, wait, you don't want to do that, as he approached them slowly and managed to pique Tamura's interest. And why? You could be crushed right now by my Nomu. Under his fake smile, Izuku felt scared. This man not only exuded confidence but also appeared to be very calm and devoted. My quirk is called Suicide Bomb. I can detonate myself but igniting a certain kind of cells in my body, and the best part is that I can regenerate in about 1 minute without feeling any kind of pain. Kurogiri saw that Tamura's expression had changed to one of seriousness. Although Kurogiri didn't know much about Izuku, what he had just said was perplexing and seemed like a childish lie, but the Nomu next to them had the ability to regenerate after being hurt by anything up to this point. Guys, let's make him bleed. It's only a child. Izuku was attacked by a villain who had a mutation quirk. Izuku prepared the piece of tape Hanta gave him, and as the villain tried to grab him, he tied one end of the tape around his arm and moved around him. This mutation is so predictable. It's just a big mass of muscle with 2 pairs of arms. Being physically strong has the drawback of making you extremely slow. In contrast to most professional heroes who possess a strength enhancement ability, the villains lack the intelligence to improve their speed. Sensei was correct. Although there are more villains than heroes, they do not persist for very long. What the? The villain was taken aback by Izuku's speed and attempted to remove the tape from his right arm, which gave Izuku the opportunity to leap on the villain's back and tie the other end of the tape around the villain's neck. It wasn't particularly heroic, but he didn't intend to kill him. Perhaps he just wanted to suffocate him until he passed out. Although he was strong, the villain was unable to do anything, not even get to Izuku, and the other villains around him recoiled in horror as they watched their comrade fall to the ground. Want to give it a shot? Now that he had all the attention to himself, Izuku couldn't help but smile when he saw the fear on the faces of the smaller creeps. The creature increased the pressure again, causing him to cry in agony. Aizawa looked at his student feebly and recognized this movement, not only because he had witnessed Izuku use it during All Might's exercise, but also because he had improved it and recognized his own moves. However, that would not save him for long. What the heck? Your good friend over here will be caught in your explosion if you blow yourself up right now, right? Yes, but that's also where it gets interesting. You try to attack me, I explode. Obviously you are using Eraser as a hostage, you might not want to lose him. With one hand, Tamura began to scratch his neck, saying, what the hell do you want? Is there somewhere else you can die? Well no, I have come to bargain. Bargain with what Kurogiri asked for. Izuku had nothing, and Tamura would never agree to haggle with anyone, first due to his current circumstances and then because he was too obstinate to even try. Deal? You've already lost, TSSS. No, I remember that you stated that killing All Might was your aim, correct? Tamura gave Kurogiri another scowl for a brief moment. Yes, and he isn't here, so I would say that you are the one losing. The more you stay the less you have chances to win against him. Besides you can't even be sure that he will show up. The scratching became more intense as Tamura became irritated. You really think I'm stupid enough to just leave like that? The lower creeps who accompanied us don't matter to me. It makes no difference if they are arrested or die. It was clear that their leader had gone too far when the aforementioned creeps turned to face Tamura. What on earth was that? Being a human shield is not what I signed up for. Bring us back right now, they grumbled. Most of them activated their quirk. Hey mist guy. If that's the plan, then I'm out. Now teleport us. Do you want to die? Tamura asked, ceasing to scratch. The creep's words, I'd rather die than spend my life in prison you shish, were cut off when a huge hand grabbed his throat. The Nomu moved and caught the attacker as he was charging at Tamura. Since the Nomu was no longer holding Aizawa, he could flee with his teacher. Well then you will serve as an example for the others. Izuku had to act now, while everyone was preoccupied. And no. No. The Nomu dropped the body on the ground after the creep writhed in agony until a crack was heard, causing his neck to snap completely. The other villains retreated a few paces, and one attempted to flee, but Tamura had already asked the Nomu to set another example with a simple hand gesture. Does anyone else wish to try it? With a sharp sense of satisfaction, he asked, and when he received no answer, he turned back to face the student, who was now fleeing while carrying Eraser head on his shoulders. With a whisper, catch, Izuku had arrived at the stairs and was nearly out of reach, or so he believed, when he heard a whistle and turned to look to his right. This strange creature, which was no longer human but rather savage, was running beside him. It screamed and smashed the ground with both of his fists with such force that Izuku lost his balance. What was even more terrifying was the creature's strength and speed. It hurt when he hit the ground head first, so Izuku had to get up or else. Bring back. The villain's leader was so far away, but Izuku was still able to hear the command. He realized that this was just a submissive dog. Since his master had never stated that the creature was permitted to harm him, the Nomu grabbed him by the throat and held on tight enough to cause harm. Izuku brought his hands to the Nomu's arm, but as soon as he touched the creature's skin, he felt a void. It wasn't as deep or as far away as with All for One, but it was still enough to throw him off balance. With the Nomu as their weapon, they planned to battle All Might using this creature's many quirks. Izuku, still in shock, stopped fighting and was now being dragged back toward the middle of the plaza, as though he had switched places with Aizawa. Izuku saw the leader's hand move and said, but it ends here. The Nomu restrained Izuku by grabbing both of his arms behind his back. I admit it, you are a very annoying little pest, but I guess that if you didn't use your suicide quirk it's only because you were bluffing. That's cheating, the leader said calmly. You want to kill All Might, Mew multiple quirks. B, how is that possible, though? The leader turned to face Aizawa. Oh, you noticed. Nomu was created with only one purpose, ending All Might's life, ending the era of the symbol of peace. I can't tell anything about his powers however, but I guess you will discover that soon enough once All Might arrives. He smiled again. That's what I hate with you heroes, you are always so stupid, throwing your lives away for nothing, as if you could do anything right now. Two students ran down the stairs and grabbed their teacher's body when Izuku was caught by the Nomu. Well, I guess that's a switch then, illegal enjoy breaking you in front of All Might, he said. Izuku responded, I didn't come because I thought I could win. What were you hoping to accomplish? Did you wish to keep him alive? You had no idea what would happen, I'm sure. Tenya had been gone for at least 10 minutes when Izuku stopped, saying, to be honest, he was just trying to buy some time, and by the time he got to UA, he was warning the teachers, I don't care about him, he is a trash. I lied earlier, yes, I'm quirkless. Under his mask, the leader initially just arched an eyebrow before laughing and then saying, quirkless? They allowed someone like you inside, hee. I've never heard a better lie than that one. Izuku's serious response, I'm not lying, caused Tamura to immediately stop. Really? Yes, on my first day at UA, I don't give a damn if he lives or dies. I don't care about him. In fact, I thought that perhaps I could persuade you to stop this. He actually threatened to expel me if I disabled the class, and on the second day, I was on the verge of being kicked out of All Might's class because I lack individuality. Kurogiri looked toward the water area and said, well, it looks like you really want to die today. That's still useless. I will slaughter as many people as I need to kill the symbol of peace, and I certainly don't care about a bunch of students. Izuku struggled as hard as he could, but the Nomu was just too strong, and the creature didn't even flinch. Sui and Mineta were sent to the water area. Why did they have to go close to the plaza? They didn't move when Tamura walked slowly toward them, saying, come out, I'm just here to kill you. Hiding was pointless because Tamura had already seen them and said, they're not even fun, let's just rush this. He was now running directly toward them and holding out his right hand. Please, someone it was 3 years ago. Where are we heading? We're paying a visit to my brother, you can go home if you want, I'm not forcing you to. I'm coming. Well, would you mind taking my hand? Izuku cautiously took Sensei's hand before a large puddle of black goo suddenly materialized to swallow them both. They were in a small garden when Izuku opened his eyes again. He looked around, but he was unable to see any buildings or hear any noises that he would typically hear in a city. You do realize that we're far away now? Did he ask? Despite Izuku's expectations, this place was well maintained, and All for One was already standing in front of an oddly shaped stone. I don't think you will ever forgive me. He didn't in life, how would he in death? She said. In death? Confused, Izuku asked. I wouldn't describe myself as a believer, but I do know a few things. Could you please tell me what is written on his tombstone? As they strolled alongside Sensei, Izuku read, Go Beyond, plus Ultra? However, that's... Indeed, it's surprising that the UA has this motto. My brother believed that a hero would always be able to turn the tide of fate in their favor and overcome any obstacle. In a way that's how he... Sensei gasped a few times. Coincidences defy all sciences. Are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. It's funny to think that words can give so much power. Well, after all, they do constitute a weapon, a dangerous one. Izuku and Sensei stood in silence in front of the tombstone for a while without responding. One day, I hope you will be able to scream those words as loud as you can, and maybe that day you will be the one working to change this world. Even though Kurogiri couldn't do much to prevent Sensei's protege from dying, he could at least keep a safe distance from the Nomu and ensure that the doctor's weapon didn't attempt to harm him. Kurogiri didn't have to join Tamura, he could handle 2 students perfectly. There was a whisper, Go Beyond, Kurogiri heard. Izuku was able to free one of his hands, applied it to the Nomu's skin, and then pulled. It was awful. He had too much power at once and was unable to absorb everything because the creature's mind was so messed up. For the first time, the Nomu screamed in response to something other than pain. Plus, Izuku continued tugging until he was free. Ultra. Izuku recited their names in his mind as though he had possessed those abilities from birth. Improvement of reflexes, strength, and speed. Sensei was correct. This is how All for One feels, the ability to accomplish anything. He didn't take everything because he didn't want to, and Izuku had everything he needed to save his friends. Izuku was 10 times faster than Tamura every time he moved closer to Tsuyu and Mineta. At times, he thought time had stopped around him, but it was real now, with improved reflexes. The villain leader slowed down, and he hadn't heard the screams of pain from his secret weapon until now. What is? He looked around, feeling astonished, frustrated, angry, and finally hurt when he noticed a fist coming from his head. Izuku didn't stop there. He seized Mineta and Tsuyu from the water and carried them away from Shigaraki, out of his grasp, and out of harm's way. Izuku H. How? That was... Mineta was stunned. He had just been on the verge of death when a miracle occurred. Was it hope? He wasn't scared at the time. Tsuyu wasn't either. They were fortunate enough to get out of the water area and were saved just as they were about to perish. What should we do, Izuku? Tsuyu asked in a defensive manner. When Izuku realized that the Nomu wasn't just incredibly powerful, but also a mindless monster with the capacity to eliminate All Might, his initial plan didn't work out as planned. Tsuyu was about to object, saying, You have to join the others. You can't do anything right now, but if you manage to bring everyone, we can win. Tenya is already on his way with reinforcement. We have to resist until he comes back. We have to go now. Izuku's punch caused the villain leader to lose his hand mask, and for a brief moment, Izuku saw his opponent's face. Tsuyu nodded and left the plaza, quickly followed by Mineta. He was unable to explain what he saw, but Izuku knew what it meant. In contrast to the other villains' faces, he was reading pure hate. You? How? Why, you are a cheater. What have you done to my Nomu? Izuku was much stronger than him now that he possessed some of the Nomu's abilities, but he still got more chills from this man than Sensei did. Why, you don't want to know, was all he could manage. When the villain put both of his hands around Tamura's neck, he began to lose his temper and floundered around, breathing heavily until it turned into a yell. Kurogiri. He dialed. Izuku's gaze briefly shifted to the mist villain, but he remained motionless, and as he turned back to face Tamura, a tiny portal appeared directly before him. He was using Kurogiri's enchantment to get to him, but even with his improved reflexes, he was unable to anticipate the precise location of the next attack. An image of 13's body being ripped apart flashed through Izuku's eyes as he used his left forearm to deflect Tamura's attack, a silent death. Izuku looked behind him and was correct. Another portal had opened, and just like the first one, Tamura's other hand was emerging. This time, Kurogiri was unable to open portals as quickly as he desired, and Tamura was unable to see what he was doing with his hands. Izuku had never seen the specifics of his quirk's operation, but he had seen what it did to Yue's gates, and that was sufficient to infer the outcome. The hero wasn't awake, but she was breathing now, and Ochako and Honta were tending to 13. Do you believe I ought to use additional tape? Did he ask? Eijiro interrupted Ochako, saying, No, you couldn't hurt her, we don't have any idea of what her true body looks like in. Hey guys. Come assist, Mineta and Sue have arrived. En route, they seized Aizawa. Ochako used her quirk on Aizawa to help her friends carry him next to 13, but it wasn't a pleasant sight, as his face was covered in blood and his costume wasn't in a better state. The gravity heroine didn't wait, and she ran with Eijiro to join Suyu and Mineta. The student was hesitant to use his tape when they dropped the body next to Honta. He wasn't afraid of blood, but there was simply too much now, and he wasn't sure if it was worth trying anything at this stage. To everyone, Eijiro's neutral. What happened, belied his fear. How did this happen? Yes, he still remembers when Tamura ordered the Nomu to kill the other villains who disobeyed him. Eraser he tried to suppress this big villain powers but something went wrong and he got caught. Their leader ordered him to torture Aizawa and Mineta stopped, and Izuku came to save the day. Ochako turned back to face Aizawa, who wanted to turn away but was unable to do so. I have never seen heroes being injured like that. I have never seen anyone in such a state in fact. Izuku, where are you? He is still fighting at the plaza. He said that Tenya went to call for reinforcement and that our best plan of action was to hold on until the pros arrives. He asked us to regroup, stated Suyu. Yes, that was our initial plan. Kyoka was able to locate Fumikage and Shoto, but we are unsure of the whereabouts of the others. We should go assist Izuku once they arrive, as both of their quirks are powerful, so I'm sure they can keep up with this major villain, the suggested Ochako. Hey, what if we are also caught? None of us have a good quirk for a fight like this, Honta replied. We cannot simply abandon him. They will come for us once they have finished with Izuku, and remember that Izuku has no Eijiro stopped, which didn't help at all. Izuku never imagined that a quirk would demand so much endurance, and it was exhausting. He was losing all of his strength. Enough, kill him, Nomu, the leader was called. The Nomu leapt into the air, and Izuku was prepared to dodge, but his fall created a cloud of dust. The beast roared, still affected by All for One, and Izuku didn't think he could hurt someone so much if he wasn't careful. Everyone in the USJ must have heard that. Something wasn't right. The Nomu had another quirk that allowed him to use so much strength and absorb such a violent shock. Izuku attempted to block the attack, just as he had done with Tamura, by punching the Nomu in the arm while dodging to cause the creature to lose his balance. The Nomu attempted to grab Izuku, but he didn't look that fast now that Izuku had stolen some of his quirks. Izuku, on the other hand, felt nothing. His fist simply stopped against a soft wall of flesh, and the Nomu stopped moving. In fact, it was staring right at Izuku. No. Izuku attempted to punch again, but his entire strength was being reduced to nothing. Izuku stopped because he had no chance of defeating this creature and he had no intention of trying to steal its quirk again because if he did, everyone would know. Tamura grinned and said, I guess you discovered Nomu's main power, shock absorption. With this All Mights has no chance to win, neither do you. When Izuku attempted to flee, the Nomu caught him by the throat before he could move, rendering his strength-enhancing abilities ineffective. The creature was on the verge of crushing his neck with just one hand. Death him! Murder him! Tamura yelled while simultaneously laughing. Kurogiri stepped behind Tamura. Previously, he had taken care to avoid opening his portals too soon or too near Izuku, but now that he was in a corner, how could he defend the poor kid if he kept endangering himself? He began to open a portal behind the Nomu, but as he concentrated, ice appeared all around the Nomu and quickly made its way to his hand. Izuku was out of breath and felt something pressing against his throat. The creature's hold was loose, and he could escape. "Reinforcement is here," was the voice he recognized. Shoto. He noticed that nearly everyone was present, including Kyoka, Momo, Denki, Hanta, Tsuyu, Ochako, Eijiro, Mineta, and Fumigaki. "What are we dealing with around here?" Fumikage said. "The others are still dealing with some villains. They can't even catch up with our level. That's pathetic. We can't fight this thing in the ice. It has several peculiarities, such as the ability to absorb shocks, making close combat pointless." Izuku returned to his fighting stance, saying, "The mist villain is slow, but he can attack from anywhere, and the last one is their leader. He has a disintegrarian quirk. Do not let him touch you." Shoto kept freezing it, saying it didn't seem strong enough to escape. "I'm going to deal with the mist guy." Fumikage replied, directing Dark Shadow at Kurogiri. When the ice surrounding the Nomu broke, he was unable to break free with his full strength. No worries, he only needed to take out the body parts that were stuck in the ice. "No way. What is this?" asked Momo, who was horrified to see something so twisted. There was no blood, and although the Nomu's flesh appeared human, it was incredibly messed up. Beneath this black skin, there were only muscles and meat. As soon as it grew back, the Nomu changed his target and attacked Fumikage. Shoto wasn't prepared to attack the Nomu again, and Izuku was the only person nearby. No. Izuku stopped the incoming punch by standing between Fumikage and the Nomu. The shock absorption quirk wouldn't have worked if Izuku had been pressing down on the Nomu's skin. "There is nothing we can do but stop him. We cannot hold him back. It is no longer human." After Izuku successfully pushed the Nomu back, Eijiro and Denki joined him. "Yeah, let's blast this monster," Eijiro said, using his quirk to take the front line position in front of them. "We saw him attack 13 from behind. Do not use any kind of projectile. He would just send them back to you," Ochako said, deciding to take the initiative against Tamura and Kurogiri in the meantime. "We have to find his weakness, Mineta, and use your bubbles against their leader, Hanta. Once he is stuck, restrain him." "Roger that." In response, Hanta joined Mineta and Fumikage. Momo continued to gaze at Kurogiri in the meantime, saying, "His neck? I located it. Take a look at his neck. The only portion of his body that hasn't turned into mist is that one." "But how are we going to get to him when it's shielded by metal plates?" Kyoka asked. Momo suggested, "I can make a small grenade. Would you mind throwing it, Tsuyu?" "As for the frog student, works for me." Izuku and Eijiro were attempting to restrain the Nomu. "Izuku man." At the same moment. "How do you have such strength?" Eijiro, who was fighting the Nomu and trying to conceal his fear, was cheered. "It's not really time to discuss that. Are you prepared, Denki? You only get one chance. I'll be leaving after that. Next, aim for his head and make sure you don't miss." Now Eijiro. The hardening student grabbed both of the Nomu's arms as it attacked, and Izuku ran behind it, pushing it over Eijiro and directly toward Denki. "Take that. Indiscriminate discharge 1,300,000 vo." But Denki went unconscious as his hands touched the Nomu's brain, and the Nomu collapsed to the ground without even yelling, while Izuku and Eijiro continued to observe his body. After 10 seconds, they both decided that the fight was over. "Phew. Man, Denki, you are..." Eijiro discovered Denki just laughing and putting both of his thumbs in the air. "Let's go assist the other people," they were reminded by Izuku. While Momo was making her grenade, the other students assisted in defending against Tamura and stopping the mist villain from using his portals. Fumikage was keeping Kurogiri at bay with little difficulty. "I'm prepared. Catch, Tsuyu." Momo threw the grenade at the frog student, who caught it with her tongue. "Throw it now." As instructed by Momo, Tsuyu leapt into the air and threw the grenade. It only made a little explosion, but it was enough to affect the mist villain. Shoto then sent another wave of ice, which was useless but required to force him to retreat. Tamura halted his attack after realizing that his only means of escape was injured. The little hero with the purple bubble was just as annoying as the student with the green hair, and they would be the first to perish after he. "It's done. Give up now," asked Shoto. "There is nothing we can do, Tamura. We cannot anticipate any reinforcement because they are just too strong because you." "Stop talking. The leader had had enough and turned to face the Nomu. How could it have been destroyed by a group of students dressed as carnival characters when it was meant to kill the world's strongest hero? Izuku joined the rest of the class and said, "Their weapon is out, they're the only ones still able to fight. Are they?" "So, not for long. What do you saw?" The gate literally exploded, and there was a loud bang around the entrance. "I'm here, so don't be afraid." Finally, it was All Might, and the student no longer felt afraid because they couldn't lose. After seeing Aizawa and 13 severely injured, something he had hardly ever seen before, the peace symbol saw his students in the center of the plaza, nearly all of them regrouped. He leapt into the air and landed directly between them and the people he believed to be the villains. I observed Tenya sprinting in the direction of UA. He looked at Momo, who was the closest, and said, "Alone." As if all hell was behind him. "I knew something was wrong, so I came here as fast as I could." "What happened?" "They attacked us when we arrived. The villain on the right teleported the others villains here. One of them had the CA city to shut down the power in the USJ and block our communication. They came here to kill you, All Might," stated the representative of the class. "I see," added the peace symbol icily. Tamura wasn't a moron. He couldn't prevail in that circumstance. "Kurogiri, please get us out of here immediately." Before All Might could take action, the mist villain quickly encircled his leader. After saying, "Those brats won't be here to save you next time," they vanished. "Where are the others?" asked All Might. "Scattered around the USJ. As we were trying to escape, the villain blocked us. 13 tried to stop him, but Izuku was stopped. Perhaps if Katsuki hadn't attacked." However, Izuku was going to skip this section, but Shoto took the initiative. All Might insisted. "Katsuki attacked the mist villain and gave him an opening to use his quirk on us. Personally, I was sent toward the mountain area with Fumikage. There were villains waiting for us." "Katsuki. Was that what the mist villain did to Shota and 13? All Might went on. "Some of us didn't get teleported. 13 was still here trying to defend us, but the villain opened a portal behind her while she was using her quirk. Honta was here to bandage her, but half of her costume was gone and—" "You can stop, Ochako. All of you must still be under the shock of such an attack. Right now we have to find the other student and wait for the teachers to arrive. For those who know where the others have been teleported, go find them. Everyone else go back to the entrance." The students followed All Might's instructions, but Izuku turned around when he saw the peace symbol approach the Nomu. "All Might, I have to tell you something?" "Yes, Izuku?" This creature, it had multiple quirk. I don't know how it's possible, but they said it was created to kill you." All Might froze, staring at Izuku blankly. "You mentioned multiple quirks? How are you aware of that?" "We witnessed it sacrifice his own arm to escape Shoto's ice before it grew back, and the leader made it apparent that it had a shock absorption quirk. And as they realized their plan wouldn't work, Izuku ordered them to be killed." "Look," Izuku said, displaying the bodies of dead villains. All Might returned his focus to the creature, asking, "How did it get to be like that? Did Sho, neutralize him?" "And no, we did." "You put up a fight?" "Yes, we couldn't risk to let them scatter us again, so we decided to regroup and fight back. At this time both Aizawa and 13 were incapacitated. You arrived just after Denki neutralized it with his quirk. I'm glad to hear that you all survived such a dire situation, but I'm upset that I was unable to help you when you needed me. Now, I just hope that 13 and Aizawa are okay." All Might's stomach was grabbed by something, and Izuku was shocked to see that the Nomu was still alive. He waved his arm and sent Izuku hurtling toward the stairway, which he regretted not dodging this time. He heard something break, and worse, he felt it. Izuku was immobilized and everything hurt when All Might grabbed the creature and slammed its body against the ground. He touched the back of his head and discovered a liquid, blood. Every time All Might delivered a punch, a tremendous gust of wind was produced, and the battle between All Might and the Nomu quickly turned into a real sandstorm. But before he could give in to the darkness, Izuku noticed something odd. All Might's shirt had been ripped around the area where the Nomu had grabbed him. Was it a scar? No, it was worse than a scar. The pain was too great. So they prevailed prior to the arrival of All Might. Unexpectedly, Izuku is safe. The next time, warp him away and prevent him from fighting. Yes, Sensei. Kurogiri was dismissed by all for one with a wave of his hand, but the mist villain remained motionless. Is something amiss? Sensei was asked. What sort of authority does he possess? Our Nomu didn't just get weak, did it? Tell me everything you know about this child if I'm meant to protect him. What makes you think you can ask me this kind of information? All for one gazed at Kurogiri. I'm loyal and it's not like you can simply throw me away. Was a risky pact, but Kurogiri was aware of his limitations. You are, of course. Is this information not getting out there? You are going to keep it to yourself? Yes, Sensei. Kurogiri approached All for One, hoping to see a look of fear or some other reaction, but he was bored and said, Izuku has the same power than me. He's got everything for one. This child? How? I take it that he is not your son? In any case, I believe I would be aware. No, he isn't, and the mystery remains. He doesn't wish to be a villain, but I haven't allowed All Might to corrupt him yet. This boy is my backup plan, so it doesn't matter if I didn't meet him sooner. A backup plan? All right, Sensei, he won't get hurt. Good, now fetch me Tsubasa. I need another dose or else I'm going to lose my temper again. After 3 hours. When Izuku awoke, he was lying in bed and recalled what had happened at the USJ, but he was no longer present, rather, it had been the UA infirmary. He noticed Aizawa beside him. 13 was not present. Recovery girl, who was seated next to Aizawa and Izuku, said, Ah, finally, I was getting scared. I used my quirk on you hours ago and you were still sleeping. The USJA All Might. Is everyone? Calm down. Yes, everyone is safe. Everyone is secure. The villains had failed, Izuku had prevailed, and everyone was alive and safe. He collapsed back into the bed after breathing. Your classmate were still here an hour ago. After the police interrogated them, they wanted to know if you were okay. This black creature landed a nasty hit. They did. That's great, the elderly woman laughed. They kept saying that you were the one who helped the most back at the USJ. Izuku stopped grinning and turned to face Aizawa, who was wrapped in bandages. What about our teachers? He asked. They are lucky to still be alive. Without your help I don't think they would be here. It was dangerous to attack the villains. You weren't prepared for this, but yet you saved those who were supposed to protect you. Today I think you proved to Aizawa that you could become heroes, all of you. Izuku reflected on his first day at UA. He detested Aizawa for what he had told him, but he was a good man who would risk his life to protect his students. The villain took me in hostage for a moment, and I said things I shouldn't have about Aizawa. On my first day he hurt me. A lot. He told me that if I handicapped the class with my lack of quirk he would expel me. Did he say that? The elderly lady looked at the professional athlete. I'm not surprised. He is serious, sometimes too serious. It wasn't easy for him either, you see? Even with such a wonderful quirk people always assimilated him as a quirkless. He became cold, and even today he barely opens to anyone. I should probably go home now. My mother must be dead worried. I guess the media knows, right? Izuku sighed and was about to get up when Recovery Girl pushed him back into the bed and said, Wait, we're not done here. I still have a few tests to run before I can let you go. You have a fractured rib, you know. It doesn't simply heal with a snap of a finger. I must admit that I hardly believe they managed to get the information about the attack. Izuku said, sorry, and waited as Recovery Girl opened several drawers before someone came into the infirmary. The man, dressed in a gray-brown coat, said, Hello Recovery, I hope I'm not interrupting anything. Recovery Girl was still looking for her equipment when she said, Not yet, you have 5 minutes before I'm ready. Izuku. This is Naomasa, he works with the police as a detective. Hello Izuku, your classmates told me how you helped them, I'm really impressed. Thank you sir, I won't disturb you for a long time, I only have a few questions to ask. I have enough to rebuild most of what happened at the USJ, but as you were directly involved with the leaders of this attack, yours might be important. Izuku responded, I understand, I will help you. He sensed something odd about this man's peculiarity, but he was unable to identify it. Fine, let's start then. We arrested the villain identified as Nomu. You said it had multiple quirks. How did you find out? Well. At first it was only a supposition. It looked like a mutation, but a mutation cannot give so many abilities. It was simply too strong to be normal. Then their leader literally said that one of his quirks was shock absorption, according to Izuku. I see. Can you tell me if you saw any other quirk? Izuku sensed something zap through the detective as he said, it had regeneration and I think it had strength enhancement quirks. Staring at Izuku, the detective asked, Are you certain? Could he sense uncertainty? I don't know every quirk he possessed, but yes, I do think he had multiple strength enhancement quirks to be so strong, Izuku said, warning him to be careful. Alright, I have one more question. Your friend said that you managed to fight Nomu alone for a brief moment. How did you manage to keep up with him if he was so strong? Izuku was in a tight spot. If this man could tell whether he was telling the truth or not, it was game over. Perhaps, in a way, he could tell the truth? He had to give it a shot. I guess it's my training. I worked a lot to arrive here, but as I'm not physical strong I had to compensate with new skills. In fact I had no chance to beat this creature alone. I just survived until reinforcement arrives. When the detective remained silent, Izuku began to think that it wasn't working and that he urgently needed a miracle. Recovery Girl approached Izuku in silence and nearly stabbed him in the shoulder with a tiny needle, saying, "Here, I hope you aren't scarred of needles." Ouch. Although it didn't hurt that much, the shock made it more painful. What was that for? I don't want to spend 10 hours until someone decides to accept the needle. I did ask you before. Izuku remarked, "You were already about to use it, while the recovery girl was washing it. I just needed a small amount of blood to make sure that you are fine. You can go now. If there is anything weird I will contact you." "Thank you." Izuku eventually got out of bed and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Naomasa, but I should really go now. If I don't go back home as soon as I can, my mother might kill me." Izuku had no trouble imagining his mother on the other end of the phone turning into a waterfall of tears. "Of course, we already tried to contact her but... well, she didn't give us much time to explain the situations." Izuku was still wearing his costume, which had been somewhat ruined at one point, but it didn't matter if he didn't change at this moment. "I should really go then." He must have gotten his school bag while he was sleeping because he quickly left the infirmary after grabbing it from beside his bed. "Kid nowadays, ha ha ha. Shuta, you should be sleeping. Are you attempting suicide?" scolded the recovery girl. Was the pro-hero blind? He tried to move, but it hurt too much. Most likely not, or else his bandages would obscure the tiny flecks of light. "Tell me, detective, was he lying about me? I know you were listening behind the door. In fact you already had your hand on the doorknob. If I can't see I can still hear." Eraser's kind. To be honest, he didn't. At some point I admit I had some doubts, but it was mostly true. Especially impressed the detective, who laughed. "Mostly? Did he lie or not? Sometimes something can be true but not in the context of the question. I'm not sure he used this against me. Izuku didn't know what kind of quirk I had, right?" Recovery Girl began her analysis by responding, "No, he had no way to know." "Well then he didn't lie. He really hated you at first. He wasn't lying when he said that you hurt him." "I only wanted to discourage him." "Lie," was the detective's icy response. "And it's a big one. You didn't even try to hide it." "Wow, it really works then. I can't even use my quirk on you in this state." The elderly heroine turned to face Eraserhead. She might be his mother because she still recalls seeing him frequently when he was just a student. He was doing everything in his power to remain here. "Shota, what have you done to this poor kid? I gave him a small chance and he took it, but then he stood up against me. I was impressed, yes." However, Izuku still had no chance to become a hero. What would happen if he ever reached the license exam? They will refuse him no matter what happens. In the end he will never become a hero. The government will never allow that. "True. And true," was the detective's initial response after scratching his head. Aizawa's statement was accurate, as was the part about the license exam. "So you pushed him to the edge, you mentally hurt him, you put a lot of press on him just so maybe he would give up." "Don't try to put the blame on me. Everyone did. Expected all might." Or not directly. He told Izuku that his class was too dangerous for quirkless individuals, but again Izuku had to be stubborn and stand up against him. However, this time he actually received some help from the other students. Toshinori did what? Recovery Girl was going to stab him, and this time, the peace symbol was telling a strange student who made it to class 1A that he wasn't strong enough. It's unacceptable after everyone on TV has said that anyone can become a hero. "Calm down, would you? I'm not done yet. For once I'm actually not lazy to do something. Can you listen?" The hurt player sighed. "I'm getting sleepy. Just in case I don't survive the night. Today he proved me that he was the strongest student I ever had. Stronger, smarter, braver than anyone." After which he did not speak. The elderly woman asked, perplexed, "Lie or truth?" The detective put his coat back and walked away, saying, "See you later." "Truth, I should go too now. I might wake him up if I stay here." "Good evening, Naosama. Let's see." Recovery Girl paused as she perused Izuku's blood analysis results. She observed the highest quirk factor concentration ever noted, but it must have been a mistake, right? It must have been an error because no one could live with that much in their body. How could a quirkless person have this in the first place? Yes, Izuku had no quirks. Up until now, only one person had this much of a quirk, and that person was supposed to be dead. She gently struck the screen twice with her cane before concluding, "This old computer is going to get replaced as soon as possible." After 4 hours, although it wasn't easy, Izuku was able to reassure his mother by thoroughly explaining what had transpired at the USJ and emphasizing that everyone, including himself, was safe and undamaged. And he may have chosen to keep his injured rib a secret. After making a ton of katsudon, Inko called Mitsuki to inquire about Katsuki and to let her know that Izuku was okay. As though her son's punching bag mattered to this foolish woman. Izuku was left with nothing to do but wait. After what had happened today, he was aware that Sensei would somehow take him to his lair, but since nothing had happened by midnight, Izuku was growing interested. All for One claimed to have been retired due to his injuries, but what if he was aware of the attack? But he didn't behave oddly. Izuku glanced at his clock once more. He was about to give up and take off his clothes at midnight, but the black goo reappeared, and he ended up sitting in a chair at Sensei's lair. Almost immediately after Izuku was fully teleported, All for One exclaimed, "I'm so relieved to see that you are fine. So you know it's on every info channel after all." Sensei gave Izuku a cup of tea and said, "Yes, I was a little afraid, since you decided that you wouldn't use All for One, I'm very skeptical about you getting involved with villains." About that I used it, followed by the teacup dropping. You did? Well then maybe you are finally accepting your natural gift and? No I'm not, Sensei's excitement disappeared. I used it because I didn't have any other choice. There was this thing, they called it a Nomu and it had multiple quirks. I used All for One to take some of its powers and fight it. Do you know how such a thing is possible? I mean, have you ever tried to give more than one quirk? All for One appeared uneasy. I did, yes, it is as dangerous as giving a single quirk. It destroys the receiver, physically and mentally, turning them into mindless beasts. They do not survive for a long time. When I stole the quirk I also felt like there were 5 people. I could feel their pain. What kind of person created that? Looking back at the teacup, All for One said, "A monster, probably. Illegal make another." Izuku approached Sensei and held out his hand, saying, Wait, there is one more thing. Could you take them?
I will continue the story in next part. Till then, bye bye.